오늘 행사 참석해주신 여러분들께 안내 말씀
Ladies
드리겠습니다.
and gentlemen,
잠시 후
some
코리아 타임스 암참
housekeeping
포럼이
announcements will
시작되겠습니다.
soon start
참석해주신
with
분들께서는
the forum.
이제
So I'd
행사장
like
안으로
to kindly
들어오셔서
ask everyone
착석을
to
해주시기를
join us
부탁드리겠습니다.
in the venue. Thank you very much.
네, 아울러서 오늘 행사 원활한 진행을 위해서 갖고 계신 휴대전화 한번 확인해 주실까요? 진동이나 무음으로 되어 있는지 혹시나 알람 설정은 되어 있진 않은지 한번 확인 부탁드리겠습니다. 이제 지금 VIP 분께서 입장을 하고 계시는데요. 착석하시고 모두 장내가 정돈되는 대로 오늘 포럼 바로 시작하겠습니다. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? We're about to begin the Korea-Times-Amcham forum shortly, so please make your way to the venue and take your seats. I'd like to ask you to change your mobile phones on a silent mode for a smoother operation. 그리고 오늘 이 행사를 위해서 저희 한국어와 영어 동시 통역 서비스가 제공이 되고 있습니다. 지금 테이블 위에 놓여져 있는 리시버를 활용해 주시면 되겠는데요. 리시버 채널 안내해 드리겠습니다. 채널 1번은 한국어, 2번은 영어로 준비가 되어 있습니다. 이용하실 때 참고해 주시기를 부탁드립니다. So today, simultaneous interpretation will be provided during the forum. So if you need it, please use the receiver on your table. Please set the channel 1 for Korean and channel 2 for English. 네, 그리고 오늘 이렇게 또 귀한 발걸음 해주신 여러분들을 위해서 저희가 특별히 경품 추첨이 진행이 될 예정입니다. 이 경품 추첨은 행사 끝나고 거의 마지막 부분에 저희 오늘 세션이 끝나고 난 이후에 여러분들과 함께할 예정이니까요. 끝까지 함께해 주시고요. 결과는 저희 끝날 때 공개할 예정입니다. So we are going to have a lucky draw at the end of the session. So please stay with us until the end. 다시 한 번 더 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 코리아 타임스 암참 포럼 저희 잠시 후에 바로 시작하겠습니다. 지금 밖에 계시는 분들이 좀 계시는 것 같은데요. 이제 행사장 안으로 들어오셔서 착석해 주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다. 다시 한번 휴대전화의 상태 진동이나 무음으로 되어 있는지 확인 부탁드릴게요. So ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please? We're going to begin the Korea Times Amcham forum shortly. So please make your way to the venue and take your seats. I'd like to ask you to change your mobile phones on a silent mode for a smoother operation. 네, 그리고 오늘 이 포럼에서는요, 원활한 진행을 위해서 저희가 동시 통역 서비스를 제공하고 있습니다. 지금 테이블 위에 놓여져 있는 리시버를 활용해 주시면 되겠는데요. 채널 안내해 드리겠습니다. 한국어는 채널 1번, 영어는 채널 2번으로 맞춰서 사용해 주시면 되겠습니다. 사용에 참고해 주십시오. So today, simultaneous interpretation will be provided during the forum. If you need it, please use the receiver on your table. Channel 1 for Korean, Channel 2 for English. 네, 그리고 말씀드린 것처럼 오늘 또 귀한 시간에 함께 해주신 여러분들을 위해서 저희가 경품 추첨을 진행합니다. 오늘 이 세션이 총 2가지가 있는데요. 이 2 세션이 모두 끝나고 나면 여러분들을 위해서 이 경품 추첨을 저희가 진행을 할 예정이고요. 이 결과는요, 저희 끝날 때 공개를 할 예정이기 때문에 오늘 포럼 끝까지 함께 해주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다. We're going to have a lucky draw at the end of this session, so please stay us until the end. 네, 이제 곧 행사 시작하겠습니다. 모두 착석해 주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다. So without further ado, let us begin our forum shortly. 네, 그러면 이제 시작하겠습니다. 네, 정말 많은
So
분들이
we'll
함께
begin the
해주고
forum.
계십니다. 오늘
We have many
코리아 타임스
distinguished guests with
암참
here today.
포럼을 위해서 참석해 주신 여러분
I would like
안녕하십니까?
to
이른
thank all of
아침부터
you
이렇게
for being
귀한
with
발걸음해
us
주시고
here today.
오늘 이 공간 이렇게 가득 메워주시고 이 자리를
We have a full
빛내주고 계신
audience
우리
today.
많은 우리 참석자 여러분들, 우리
And I
내외
would
기민
like
여러분들께
to thank all
감사드리고요.
the distinguished
여러분들을
guests
환영합니다.
for
오늘
taking
이
time out of your busy
뜻깊은
schedule to
논의장에
attend
또
this
많은
forum.
분들이 귀한 발걸음해 주셨는데요.
We
저도
have
함께 할 수
many
있게 돼서
distinguished guests here,
감사하게
and I'm very
생각합니다.
pleased
오늘
to be
코리아
with you
타임스
here
암참
today.
포럼 저는 진행을 맡은
I'm your
아나운서
MC for today,
김연진입니다.
Kim
반갑습니다.
Yeonjin. Nice to meet you.
네, 환영해 주셔서 고맙습니다.
Thank
코리아
you.
타임스 포럼은 이렇게 매해 특별한 주제로 여러분들과
Every year,
인사이트 가득한
this forum is
그런
held
논의의 장을
under
마련하고
special
있습니다.
themes.
자, 올해 2025년 상반기
This
코리아
is
타임스
the
암참
2025 Korea Times Amcham
한미
Forum.
경제 협력의 전략적
Is being held under the theme
방향
Strategic
제시라는
Proposals for
주제로
Korea-U.S.
진행이
Partnership.
됩니다. 최근 도널드 트럼프 미국
Recently,
대통령의
U.S.
관세
President
부과와
Donald
반도체
Trump's tariff
보조금
measures and
정책
changes in
등은 정말 세계
semiconductor
경제와
subsidy
한국
policies
기업에 중대한
have had
영향을
significant
주고
repercussions
있습니다.
for the global
정치적인
economy
변동을
and
거쳐서
Korean
이번에
industries.
한국 정부가
Amid this
새롭게
shifting
출범을
political
했는데요.
landscape,
이렇게
Korea's newly launched
급변하는 글로벌
administration
환경
faces a
속에서
critical
과연 우리
juncture,
산업의 미래
one that
전략을
demands a
어떻게 할
renewed
것인지에
national
대해서
strategy in
고민을 해야
response to a
되는 그런
rapidly
중요한
evolving
시점에
global
서
trade
있습니다.
environment.
그런 점에서 오늘 열린
In
이 포럼은
response,
굉장히
the Korea
시의적절하지
Times
않나라는
and
생각이
Amcham have
드는데요.
come together to
따라서
organize this
코리아
timely
타임스와
forum,
암참은
bringing together
국내외
key
산업계 주요
figures from
인사들을
both domestic
한자리에
and
이렇게
international
초대를 해서
industries to
국제
explore
환산
strategies
무대에서
for
한국의
enhancing
경제력
Korea's
강화
competitiveness
방안을
on the
함께
global
모색하는
trade stage.
뜻깊은 논의장을 마련했습니다. 오늘 귀한 발걸음해 주신 만큼
Thank
끝까지
you for being here today.
소중한 시간,
I hope you're
의미 있는
with us till the
시간으로
end,
채워가 주시길
and we hope to have a
부탁드리겠습니다.
meaningful forum
자,
here.
오늘 이 뜻깊은 포럼 주최해 주신 분들의 환영의 말씀을 청해
And now
보도록
to begin the
하겠습니다.
official proceedings, we'll first hear a welcome address from Mr. Seung-myung-ho, Chairman of the Korea Times, the host of today's forum. Let's give a big hand for Mr. Seung-myung-ho.
예, 안녕하십니까.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
코리아 타임즈 회장
한국,
승명호.
I'm chairman of
오늘
Korea Times
한미 경제
and
협력의
한국일보,
전략적
한국데일리
방향 제시라는
승명호.
주제로 열리는
I would like to
본
extend
포럼에
my sincere
함께
thanks to all of you for
해주신
joining
여러분께
us today
진심으로
for this Korea
감사의
Times
말씀을
M10 forum held under the topic of
특히
strategic
이른 아침
proposals
바쁜 일정
for
속에서도
Korea-U.S. partnership. I would
자리를
especially like to thank
주한
Chairman and CEO
미국
James
항공회의소
Kim
제임스
of
킴
Korean
회장님과
Chambers of Commerce in Korea,
대통령
Senior
국정
Secretary
홍보
Lee
비서관님,
Min-jun
그리고
to
영상으로
Public
특별
Lee Min-ju
연설을
to Public
전해주실
Relations of the
마이크
Office
건기
of the President
알라스카
for taking time off their busy schedules this
패널
early
토의에
morning, as well as
참석해
Governor
주실
Mike
믹
Dunleavy of
멀베이니
Alaska
트럼프
will deliver
임기
online special
백악관
address, and Mr. Mick
비서실장
Mulvaney,
직무
former White
깊은
House Chief of
감사를
Staff
드립니다.
to President Trump's
아울러
first White House,
각국
will participate in the
대사님들과
panel
오늘
discussion. I'd
발표와
also like to
토론을
extend a warm
맡아주실
welcome to and thanks to all
모든
ambassadors and to
패널
all of our
여러분께도
speakers and panelists
따뜻한
for their
환영과
presentations
감사의
and
인사를
discussions today. Thank you
지금
and
우리는
welcome.
국내외 질서가
We're at a
빠르게
critical
개편되는
juncture in a
격동의
turbulent world
흐름
where the
속에서
domestic
그
and
변화를
international
이끌
order is
주체가
rapidly
될 것인지
reshaping itself,
아니면
and we need to
거센
decide
파도에
whether we will be
휘말릴
an
것인지
agent of change or be
결정해야
caught
하는
in the
중대한
turbulent
기로에 서
waters.
있습니다. 정치적
Now that
격동기를
the new
지나서
government has
새
taken
정부가
office after a
출범한
turbulent
지금
political times,
국정운영의
President
첫걸음을
Lee
내디딘
Jae-myung recently
이재명
attended the
대통령
G7
대선은
summit,
최근
where he
G7
presented his new
정상회의에
foreign
참석해서
policy vision
대한민국의
to the
새로운
international
외교
community
비전을
for the
처음으로
first
제시했습니다.
time.
대외적으로는
Externally,
미국의
the country has
보호무역주의,
entered an era
중국과의
where
기술
diplomacy,
패권
security,
전쟁,
and economy
지속적인
are closely
군사도발이
intertwined,
얽히면서
with signs of
외교,
return to
안보,
protectionism
경제가
in the U.S.,
긴밀히
a race for
연결된
technology
시대에
supremacy
접어들었습니다.
with China, and North
특히
Korea's
최근
ongoing military
트럼프
provocations.
대통령의
Most recently,
재집권
since President
고유
Donald
관세
Trump's
부과와
re-election, his
반도체,
hardline
보조금,
protectionist policies,
철회 등
including the
강경한
imposition of high
보호무역
tariffs
정책이
and the withdrawal of
본격화되면서
semiconductor
세계
subsidies,
경제
have had
질서와
profound
한국 기업에
impact on the
아주
global
중대한
economic
영향을
order
미치고
and
있습니다.
to Korean
한국을
companies.
비롯한
It's time for
개방형
open
경제
economies like South
국가들은
Korea
대응
to
전략을
rethink
다시
their
점검을
response
해야
strategy.
됩니다. 우리 기업들은
Our companies
미국이
are
주도하는
facing both
공급망
opportunities
재편
and risks
과정에서
from the
기회와
US-led
위험을
supply
동시에
chain
마주하고
reshaping
있으며
and we are at a crossroads of survival and thriving in the face of competition from digital trade and carbon border taxes to the semiconductor and battery industries. At this point, redesigning the future of the Korea-U.S. economic partnership is not just a diplomatic issue. It is a survival strategy for Korea and a growth strategy for the next generation. In the current global economic order, Korea's path forward is to expand beyond the traditional security alliance to an economic and technological alliance. We must stand with the United States to defend the free and open market order, but we must also build a practical partnership to create common standards in advanced technologies, build resilient supply chains, and drive sustainable growth. In this regard, the role of the new government is more important than ever. The government needs to create a predictable policy environment and overhaul the institutional framework in line with global norms. It also needs to make bold regulatory reforms and actively support the development of future talent so that companies can innovate freely and invest in new industries. In particular, national roadmaps for strategic industries such as semiconductors, biobatteries, and AI are directly related to technological sovereignty and should be pursued with a long-term perspective. Companies also need to be strategically flexible in a rapidly changing trade environment and actively respond to new paradigms such as digital transformation and overseas market diversification. The world has entered an era of technological security, and the country that dominates technology will control the economy. Therefore, a partnership will need to evolve in the direction of expanding joint research and development, promoting mutual talent exchange, and strengthening cross-industry cooperation. Today's forum is not just about diagnosing reality. Now we must boldly design the next decade. It is about sharing our vision of a Korea that defends free trade and open economies, pursues technological innovation and sustainability simultaneously, and seeks global leadership beyond alliances. Korea-U.S. economic relations has grown stronger in the face of challenges. I hope that today's discussion will contribute to further maturing our bilateral cooperation. In closing, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all of you for attending today's Korea's Times Forum. Thank you very much.
고맙습니다.
Thank you.
승명호 코리아 타임스 회장님께서 여러분들께 환영의 말씀 그리고
Chairman
이번
Sung Myung-ho
포럼에
has
관련된
delivered
이야기를
his
짚어주셨습니다.
welcome speech.
기회와 위협의 그 순간
In the
생존과
face of
기회를
opportunity and
한일
threat,
경제
at an
파트너십을 설정하는 것이
existential
굉장히
juncture,
중요하고 오늘 이 자리
raucous cooperation is
중요하고
vital.
의미가 있다라는
That is
말씀
why
그
this
시간에
venue
주셨을
is
때
so timely and
굉장히
valuable
중요한
for
말씀해
us.
주셨는데요. 많은 분들이 동감했으리라
And I think we all agree upon his message.
고맙습니다.
We sincerely
자,
thank
이어서
you for your
공동 주최를 해주신
remarks.
우리 제임스 킴,
Next,
주한
we'll
미국
hear a
상공회소
welcome address
회장이시자
from Mr. James Kim, Chairman and CEO of Amcham Korea, our co-host for today's forum. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good morning.
안녕하세요.
Welcome to the 2025 Korea Times Amcham Special Forum. I just want to start by thanking Chairman Sung Myung-ho and the entire Korea Times team for helping make this forum so special today. We have always valued this important relationship between Amcham and the Korea Times. I'm also very thankful that we have Mr. Lee Min-ju, the Secretary for Public Affairs at the Presidential Office, for joining us. Unfortunately, President Lee Jae-myung was not able to join in person, but we're very honored that Secretary Lee would deliver the President's message on his behalf. I also want to acknowledge the Honorable Kwon Chil-sung, and the Honorable Lee Eun-ju, the members of the 22nd National Assembly. I've known the Honorable Kwon Chil-sing now for close to a decade, and look at him as a very special friend. He did an amazing job as the Minister of SMEs under the Moon administration, and we expect to see a lot more of you. And lastly, I am super excited that the Honorable Mike Dunleavy, the Governor of the state of Alaska, will join us live from Alaska. I had the special privilege of hosting Governor Dunleavy during his recent visit to Korea, and actually spent from morning to evening with him. His passion and strategic vision for advancing the U.S.-Korea energy security via the Alaska LNG project is truly inspiring. AmCham is proud to continue supporting not just the Alaska governor, but President Trump with the successful Alaska LNG project. Governor Dunleavy is one of the best governors that I've had a chance to work with. So again, Governor, thank you for being with us from Alaska. Today's forum marks the first high-level dialogue between the U.S. and Korean business leaders since President Lee Jae-myung's inauguration. It's great to see a huge turnout like today. I've had the pleasure of knowing President Lee Jae-myung for more than a decade, dating back to my time as a CEO of Microsoft, and he was the mayor of Seongnam City. I vividly remember when his office reached out to my office and wanted to do an MOU between Microsoft and Seongnam City. The topic he wanted to execute was called cloud infrastructure. Who knew more than 10 years ago about cloud? So this is when I knew that our President Lee Jae-myung, is a true visionary. AmCham recently returned from our annual door knock in Washington, D.C., where we engaged in nearly 40 meetings with senior U.S. government officials from the White House, USTR, Department of Commerce, State Department, and we also met with many senators and members of Congress. In every meeting, we highlighted President Lee's leadership and helped position Korea as the #1 foreign investor in the United States. We also stressed that the ongoing U.S.-Korea tariff negotiations present a strategic opportunity not only to resolve non-tariff barriers, but to decrease the trade deficit through AmCham's Buy America campaign. In fact, we just entered into these campaigns with companies such as HomePlus and GM. The campaign is already working. HomePlus, since they started the campaign, their revenues are up 135% with U.S. products sold in their stores. So Buy America campaign is really working out nicely. Also, as many of you know, Trade Minister Yo Han-gu departed for Washington, D.C. just a couple of days ago. I met with him for over an hour. And he'll be meeting with Ambassador Jameson Greer and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lednick. I shared with him the feedback from our door knock meetings, as well as AmCham's latest Business Environment Insight Report, and I think he found it very helpful. I've known Trade Minister Yo Han-gu for close to a decade, and I think President Lee Jae-myung made a terrific choice to hire him for this job as a trade minister at this very important time for Korea-U.S. relations. I wish him a lot of success. And lastly, I had the privilege of attending President Lee Jae-myung's first ever signing ceremony to launch the AI data center between the SK Group and Amazon. It's a huge project for SK Telecom, since they're leading this project. Under the leadership of SK Telecom CEO Yoo Young-sang, Korea can help accelerate and innovate AI to its fullest. The signing ceremony with AWS is a true testament. And looking ahead, I remain deeply optimistic about Korea's future. Simply put, we need to have more U.S. and foreign multinational companies establish Korea as a location for its regional headquarters. I've always said this. Singapore has 5,000 multinational companies in their country. Hong Kong has 1,400. Shanghai has 900. Korea has less than 100 today. So this is a perfect opportunity for Korea to go from 100 to 1,000. And we hope that under President Lee Jae-myung's leadership, we can get that. And in conclusion, as the tariff discussion continues between Korea and the U.S., it will be very important to reduce uncertainties for businesses that are operating in Korea, both Korean and foreign. We have many iconic U.S. companies present today, from AB InBev, GM Korea, Lockheed, MSD. We need to make sure that they are happy investors and they are successful here. If that happens, they will invest more, create more jobs, and it's a win for both U.S. and Korea. So again, I hope that today's forum will be meaningful for all of you, and I look forward to moderating today's panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your wonderful speech. 고맙습니다. 오늘 이렇게 또
Thank you so much.
미국
Now,
상장회의소 회장이시다 대표
that was wonderful welcoming remarks from Chairman James Kim, and he extended his appreciation and welcome to the organizers as well as those that are attending today. Now we will move to congratulatory remarks, which will be first delivered by His Excellency Lee Jae-myung, President of the Republic of Korea. The message will be delivered on his behalf by Senior Secretary Min-ju of Public Relations at the Presidential Office. Please welcome with big hand.
네, 안녕하십니까. 대통령실에서
Good
국정홍보비서관을 맡고 있는 이민주라고
morning.
합니다.
I'm Lee Min-ju, Senior Secretary at the Presidential Office of Republic of Korea. Inevitably, President could not attend due to his schedule conflict, and I'd like to ask for your understanding and read his message on his behalf. Congratulations on the Korea Times-Amcham Forum. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to Chairman Seung Myung-ho of the Korea Times, Chairman and CEO James Kim of American Chamber of Commerce in Korea, and all of you for organizing such a meaningful event. I would also like to welcome Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy, former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, GM Asia Pacific President and Managing Director Barilla, and other distinguished guests to the forum today. The Republic of Korea and the United States are allies, and in rapidly changing international environment, we face significant challenges in energy, global trade, and other areas that require us to deepen our exchange, cooperation, and solidarity. It is with pleasure that we are organizing this forum as strategic proposal for Korea-U.S. partnership at this important juncture. With experts from both countries' cutting-edge industries and leading U.S. officials familiar with President Donald Trump's policies, we hope that today's event will serve as a valuable reference to shape and develop the direction of the U.S. ROC economic policy. The government of the Republic of Korea will continue to do its utmost to strengthen bilateral economic cooperation based on the strong Korea-U.S. alliance, and I'm confident they will be able to find mutually satisfactory solution to this tariff issue. Again, I would like to congratulate the Korea Times-Amcham Forum. I hope this event will serve as a meaningful opportunity to further strengthen economic cooperation solidarity between South Korea and United States, and wish all the participants the best. Thank you very much.
네, 소중한 말씀 전해주신 우리
Thank you for the
이재명
meaningful
부장님,
remarks.
대통령님께
Please
다시
join me in
한번
extending our
감사드리고요.
sincere
대통령님
appreciation to
그리고
President Lee
국정원에서
Jae-myung for
드리겠습니다.
his message and
굳건한
Mr. Lee
한미
Min-chu.
동맹 경제 협력을 위해서 대한민국 정부도
Solid
애쓰겠다라는
raucous
말씀. 이번
alliance
포럼을
is something
통해서
that the
이
Korean
연대가
government
더
strives for too.
돈독해지길
I hope through this
바란다라는
opportunity,
도전적인
solidarity
말씀까지
becomes hardened
전해주셨습니다.
evermore.
자, 계속해서 축사를 또 이어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 또 귀한
Next, we'll
말씀을
hear
해주셨는데요.
congratulatory
우리
remarks from the
권칠승
Honorable Kwon
더불어민주당
Chil-sung, member of the
국회의원님께서
National Assembly from the
축하의
Democratic
말씀을
Party of Korea.
전해주시겠습니다.
Please welcome Assemblyman Kwon Chil-sung with a big round of
국회의원님,
applause.
뜨거운 박수로 맞이해 주십시오.
네, 반갑습니다.
Hello, everyone.
네, 기분 여러분.
Distinguished guests,
뵙게 돼서
it
대단히
is a
반갑습니다.
pleasure to meet you all.
저는 국회 외교통일위원회 소속
I am a member of the National Assembly and the Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee, Kwon Chil-sung.
제임스 킴 회장님,
Chairman James Kim of AmCham, Chairman Seung Myung-ho of the Korea Times, Governor Mike Dunleavy, Governor of Alaska, Senior Secretary Lee Gu-yeon, Lee Min-ju, and member of the National Assembly Lee Yeon-ju, and distinguished leaders from the political and business sectors. It is an honor to be with you here today. Recommendations for Korea's new administration strengthening the Korea-U.S. economic partnership. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Korea Times and AmCham for organizing today's forum under this theme. Recently, AmCham has taken the lead through its Door Knock program in Washington, D.C., enabling Korean business leaders to directly engage with U.S. administration and congressional officers. This has allowed Korean companies to contribute meaningfully to U.S. policymaking and has created a channel for proactively addressing bilateral issues between the two countries. From this perspective, today's forum is especially meaningful not only because of the presence of corporate voices, but also because the Korea Times, a major media outlet connecting the two nations, is co-hosting the event. The involvement of English language media goes beyond mere reporting. It is a key mechanism for delivering messages about the direction of Korea-U.S. cooperation to the global community in a transparent and balanced manner. It also serves as a bridge connecting businesses, policymakers, and global public opinion. Once again, I thank AmCham and the Korea Times for helping to broaden the scope of the Korea-U.S. cooperation. Korea and the United States have long maintained a strong alliance and have built the most strategic partnerships in areas such as economy, technology, talent, and norms. For Korea, the U.S. is its second largest export and trading partner, and likewise, the U.S. ranks Korea among its top 6 trading partners, which demonstrates the deep interdependence of our economies. This structure of mutual reliance strengthens cooperation in areas like supply chains, trade, energy, and technology, reinforcing our shared destiny as close allies. Many countries are concerned amidst the trade environment growing more complex. But Korea is increasingly seen as a key partner that can play a special role in strategic industrial cooperation with the U.S. President Trump has highlighted Korea's shipbuilding technology and production capacity and has referred to cooperation with Korea as a key strategic card. Discussions on the shipbuilding industry, which is directly linked to national security, demonstrate that Korea is not merely a trading partner to the United States. It shows that Korea can be a valuable partner in areas of advanced technology and security, essential to the U.S. future strategic agenda. The partnerships of the two countries have become more rock solid, even amidst global affairs. It is a valuable asset to the two countries. 2025 marks the launch of new leadership in both countries and coincides with Korea hosting the APEC summit for the first time in 20 years. This rare convergence of political transition and global spotlight offers a decisive moment for both nations to co-design a new global economic order. The upcoming APEC summit in Gyeongju this October will serve as a strategic platform for the U.S. and Korea to lead on key issues such as digital trade, energy cooperation, supply chain resilience, and regulatory harmonization. It will be a stage of great strategic importance. And today's forum will serve as a meaningful starting point for realizing a successful Korea-U.S. economic partnership in 2025.
저 역시 국회의 일원으로서
As a member of the National Assembly,
귀 기울이고
I will listen to
협력의 토대를
what the
더욱
forum
공고히
and the panelists have to
마련할 수
say
있도록 노력하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
and contribute to more rock-solid Ruckus Alliance. Thank you.
네, 고맙습니다. 우리 더불어민주당 권채승 국회의원님
Please
힘있는
give
말씀
another round of applause to the Honorable Kwon Jae-sung for his inspiring remarks.
이어서 또 축사 청해 보도록 하겠습니다. 우리
Next,
더불어민주당
we will hear
최고
congratulatory
위원이신
remarks from the
이현주
Honorable Lee
국회의원께서
Eun-joo,
축사를
member of the
해주시겠습니다.
National Assembly
박수 함께
from the
무대로
Democratic Party of Korea. Please welcome Assemblywoman Lee Eun-joo with a big round of applause.
네, 더불어민주당
Good morning. I'm
이현주 국회의원입니다. 반갑습니다.
Lee Eun-joo, member of
저는
Democratic
당에서
Party of
미래
Korea and
경제
chairman of the
전략
Future
위원장을
Economic
맡고 있습니다.
Growth Strategy
오늘
Committee of our
코리아
party.
타임스와 주한 미국 상공회의소
I'm
암찬에서
really glad
공동
to be
주최하는,
here on
한미
the
경제
Korea
협력의
Times-Amcham
전략적
Forum,
관련 제시,
co-hosted by
주제가
Korean
하는
Times
컨퍼런스
and
정말
the American
축하드립니다.
Chamber of Commerce
그리고
in
이
Korea, held
컨퍼런스가
under
굉장히
the theme of the
시의적절한
strategic
컨퍼런스라고
proposals for
생각을
Korea-U.S.
합니다.
partnership.
오늘
I do believe this
함께
is a very
해주신
timely
송명호
conference,
회장님,
and
그리고
like to express my gratitude and
제임스
respect
회장님,
to Chairman
또
Seung-myung of the
함께
Korea
해주신
Times, Chairman and CEO
권채승
James
의원님과
Kim of
대통령실의
Korea
이민주
Chambers of
부서관님
Korea,
등을
and
비롯해서
National Assemblyman
자장가 패널 청중으로
Kwon Chul-sung, and
참석해
also
주신
Senior
모든
Secretary
분들께 진심으로
Lee Min-joo,
감사드립니다.
and also
지난 6월
others for
4일
being with us today.
대한민국의
On
이재명
June
대통령께서
4th,
취임하셨습니다.
we had the
온
inauguration
국민이
of President
함께
Lee
12.3
Jae-myung.
불법
Together,
비상계엄을
the people of
극복하고
South Korea overcame the illegal martial
민주공화국
law
대한민국이 세계 무대로
and the
다시
Democratic Republic
돌아왔다라고 저희는
is
말씀드립니다.
back. That's what we would like
그러나 이제
to
많은
say.
국민들이
However,
기대하고
the new
있습니다만
government
새 정부
faces
앞에는
many
국내외적
challenges
과제가
at
산적합니다.
home and
국내적으로는
abroad.
침체 일로에
Domestically,
빠진
it needs
내수를
to
진작하고
revitalize the
산업
slumping
공동화 위기를
domestic
극복해야
economy
합니다.
and overcome the crisis of
대외적으로는
industrialization.
국제질서 전환기
Externally,
속에
the
글로벌
country is facing a
공급망,
rapid changing
재편,
international
그리고
order,
미국발의
including the
관세 전쟁,
reorganization of global
자원
supply chains,
민족주의와 보호무역주의의
tariff
확산,
war with the
또
U.S., the
경제,
spread of
산업 국가
resources,
안보의 핵심
resource
전략인
nationalism and
AI
protectionism, and the
대전환과
AI
에너지
energy
대전환
transformation,
중에 과제에 우리는
which are the
직면해
key strategy
있다고
for economic,
아주
industrial,
절박하게 생각하고 있습니다.
and national
최근
security.
한국과 미국과
The recent tariff
본격적인 관세
negotiations
협상을
between
앞두고
South Korea
걱정의
and the United
목소리가
States
높습니다.
have raised concerns
자동차,
as the
철강
country's
등
export to
관세
the U.S.
인상으로 인한
have been
대미 수출
declining due to
감소가
increased tariff
현실화되고
rates
있기
on
때문입니다.
automobile steel.
사실 한국은
According
미국과 산업 구조적
to the
측면에서 꼭
industrial
필요한
structure
상호
wise,
보완적 관계에 있다고
Korea
할 수
and
있습니다.
U.S. have
한국은
complementary
첨단 제조
relationship,
강국으로서 가장
whereas
강력한 경쟁국인 중국과 또
Korea
다른 첨단 제조 강국인 독일보다
along with its
가격과
competition in the
품질
advanced
종합적으로
industries
보자면
of China and
경쟁력이
Germany,
아주 뛰어난
overall
나라입니다.
it boasts
또한
very
산업
strong
구조적
competitive
측면에서
edge, and in terms of industrial
미국이
structure,
자본과 빅테크
U.S. has
이런 소프트웨어가 굉장히
tools and big
발달했다면
tech, so it's
한국은
advanced in
하드웨어에서
software area,
강점을 갖고
whereas
있습니다.
Korea enjoys
AI
strength
운영도
in the
미국이
hardware.
원천 기술 등의
AI
강점이
also
있다면
has,
한국은 이를 응용한
U.S. has
자율제조와
source technologies,
기술력과
but in
노하우를
application
기여할
in the
수
area
있습니다.
of healthcare and
한국과
others,
미국의 AI
Korea can
협력과
contribute
한국 제조 노하우의
in
기여
terms
이런
of
것들은
the advanced
어쩌면
manufacturing
가까운 미래에 트럼프
technologies,
대통령이
and
언급한 미국
this could
제조업의
actually
부활에 크게
can
기여할 수
contribute toward the
있을 거라고
revival
기대합니다.
of the
어쩌면 양국
manufacture of the
간의
U.S. as
자율제조 부문을
purported
또
by
다른 일자리를
President Trump.
양산하고
It
전
could
세계
actually
제조업의
create more
혁신을
jobs
가져올지도
and drive new
모른다라고
innovation
저희는
in
기대합니다.
the global
에너지
economy.
부문도
In the
미국이
energy
LNG,
sector, while
셰일가스
the
등
U.S. has
방대한
vast
자원을 보유하고
resources,
있다면
such as LNG
한국은
and shale
원전
gas,
건설과
Korea
SMR,
is
그리고
indispensable
가스
partner
터빈 등
for the
기술력과
U.S. in nuclear
파운드리에서
power
미국에
plant
꼭
construction,
필요한
SMR
파트너며
technology, and
조선,
foundries,
방산, 첨단
and
기계,
its
배터리
strongest
등에서
competitor
중국의 가장
to China
강력한
in defense,
경쟁자로서
shipbuilding,
미국에게
advanced
없으면 안
machinery and
될
batteries,
전략적 산업
making it an
파트너로
indispensable
자리 잡고
strategic
있습니다.
industrial partner for the
또한
U.S.
한국은 괄목할 만한
Korea
미국 내 투자로
also has
제조
been
부활에도
significant
그리고 일자리
in
창출에도
investing in the
많이
U.S.,
기여하고
creating
있습니다.
jobs and driving
그러나
the
한국
birth of
내 제조
manufacturing in the
생태계, 산업
U.S.
생태계가
But
파괴된다면
if Korea's
미국과의
industrial
전략적
ecosystem is
파트너십도 불가능하고
broken, you can
미국
not
제조
have strategic
부활의
partnership with
기여도
the U.S.
불가능할
and would not
것이라고
be able to
우려하고
contribute
있습니다.
to the revival
따라서
of the
한국의 산업
manufacture
생태계가
of the
잘
U.S.
유지되고
In other words,
생존하는 것이야말로
retaining and
미국의
survival of the
이해관계에도
Korea
부합하는 것이라고
industrial
저는 생각합니다.
ecosystem is also
한국과
in the
미국의
need
조선
of
협력도
the U.S.
마찬가지입니다.
Same goes
이것은
with the
단순한
partnership in
경제 협력이
shipbuilding.
아니라
It goes
한미
beyond
동맹,
mere
한미
economic
간의 군사
partnership.
동맹을
It
기초로
can
합니다.
also be the
한국의
base
조선업은
for
LNG
military and
선박,
defense
쉐빙
partnership
선
between
등
our two
첨단
countries.
선박의
LNG
기술력,
shipping
즉
and
질적
shipping,
측면에서 세계
and in
최고입니다.
terms of quality
중국에
and
이어
quantity, we
규모
are one of the
면에서도
best,
세계
and
두 번째입니다.
we are also
그리고
only behind
조선업은
China in terms of
숙련공
volume.
없이는
In
갑자기
shipbuilding,
자동
without skilled
공정이나 AI로 할
workers,
수
you
있는
cannot
분야가 아닙니다.
really apply
즉
AI
한국이
autonomous
미국 내
manufacturing
조선업의
process.
부활을
In
아무리
other
돕는다고
words,
해도
even if
시간이
we help
필요한데
shipbuilding
미국에는
revival
당장
in the
교체와 수리가
U.S.,
필요한 많은
it requires
군용과
time, and
수송선들이
in
있는
the
것으로
U.S.,
압니다.
I do believe there are many vessels,
그렇다면
including
양국
the
간
defense
조선
area, that
협력은
requires
상당 기간의
repairs and
신조와
upgrades.
수리에 관한 예측
This
가능성을
means
담보할 수 있어야 할
we need
것입니다.
predictability
따라서
in
제
this
개인적으로는
area. So
한미
personally,
동맹에
I
기반한
believe the
조선
foundation
특수
between our
협정의
bilateral
체결이 필요하지
partnership
않을까
is
이런 것을
having a
검토해야
good
한다고
maybe
생각합니다.
agreement in the
마이크
cooperation for
던님이
shipping
알래스카 주진 목사님께서
area.
이따가
I believe Governor
말씀하시겠지만
of Alaska
프로젝트를
will
비롯한
say
에너지
talk about
협력도
this,
굉장히
but
중요합니다.
also energy cooperation,
알래스카
including
프로젝트에
Alaska
관해서도 양국이
project. It's very
적극적으로 협력할
important,
필요가
and I
있다고
do believe
생각하는데
a strong cooperation
경제성에
needed for
관한
Alaska
검토는
project. So
물론이고
we need to
개발 방식에
review
관한
economic
다양한 검토도
viability
필요할
and
것입니다.
also see how it can be
한국은 가스
developed
개발을
from
위한
different
엔지니어링이나
perspective,
가스
engineering for
운반에
gas
관한
development
선박,
and
제조 등 여러 인프라
shipbuilding
사업에
and
있어서도
ships
세계
for
최고의
the
뛰어난
gas
노하우를
delivery.
갖고
We have
있습니다.
one of the best
최선의
expertise
방법을
in the
반드시
world,
찾아낼 수 있다.
and I
이렇게
am confident
생각합니다.
that if
이
we
사안에
put our heads
대해서는
together,
우리
we can come
이웃나라
up with the best
일본이나
option.
대만하고의
And with
협력도
cooperation with
가능할
Japan and
것이라고
Taiwan in
생각합니다.
this area, I
이제
believe
한국과 미국은
is also
새로운 정부가
feasible.
출범해서
U.S.
미래를
as
향해
well as
맥진하고
Iraq now
있습니다.
has new
한미 간의
administration
경제
and is
협력은
opening
산업
new door for
구조적
the future.
측면에서
In terms of
시너지가
industrial
매우 큽니다.
structure, I believe we
한국과의
enjoy
무역
good
관계는
synergistic
단순히
relationship,
무역
trade
흑자냐,
relations
무역
between
적자냐의
ROK and
문제가
U.S.
아니다.
is not only
이렇게
about
생각합니다.
deficit or
그것보다는
surplus in trade
장기적
relations. More
파트너로서의
than that,
전략적
strategic
관계, 파트너십을
relationship for
생각해야
long-term
한다. 이렇게 생각하고
future
그런
is what we
면에서는
need to
앞으로
focus on.
한미
In this
동맹이
regard,
단순한 군사
ROK and
동맹을
U.S.
뛰어넘어서
alliance should go beyond from the
산업
defense area
동맹으로서
to grow in
미래를
the
더
industrial
굳건하게
economic area,
발전시켜
so
나가는
that
큰 축이
we
될
can
것이라고 믿고
it can become
그렇게
strong
기대합니다.
access
오늘
for a better
좋은
future for
컨퍼런스
both
되시기를
our
바랍니다.
two
고맙습니다.
countries. I hope that today's conference will be a good one, and thank you very much.
고맙습니다. 우리 더불어민주당
Thank you.
최고위원이신
Please give another round of
국민의힘
applause to the
Korea-U.S.
Honorable Lee Eun-ju,
대표이고요.
Democratic Party of
군사적
Korea
전략적
Supreme
상호
Council member.
동맹으로서 더 굳건해지기를 바란다라는
I
말씀을
hope the
드렸습니다.
Rakas Alliance
고맙습니다.
become
네, 현재 시각이
ever
9시
solid.
38분을
So
가리키고
it's
있습니다.
now
저희
9:38.
토론을 바로 시작하기 앞서서
Before we
정독이
begin with the
필요해서
special
약
speech
5분간
and
쉬는
the
시간을
session
갖도록
one,
하겠습니다.
we'll have about
그래서
5 minutes of
9시
break.
43분에 저희
We'll return
특별
to
연설부터 바로 시작하겠습니다. 잠시
the
화장실 다녀오실 분들
special speech from
다녀와주시고요.
9:43.
5분 정도 저희 브레이크 타임을
So after
가진
5
이후에
minutes,
다시
please
9시
make your way
43분에
back to the
이곳에서 뵙도록
ballroom.
하겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
Thank you.
네, 이제 여러분들께 안내 말씀 드리겠습니다. 저희 특별
A
세션부터
housekeeping
시작해서
announcement.
특별 연설을
Starting from
시작으로
the
세션
special
1과 2,
speech,
네,
we're
세션
going
1과
to
2는
continue
패널
with session
토론으로
1 and
진행될
session 2.
예정인데요.
Session
자, 잠시 후 저희
1
특별
will be held
세션부터
in
특별 연설부터
panelist session.
시작하겠습니다.
So we will
ladies and
begin
gentlemen,
with
now
the
we're
special
going to
speech
have the special
shortly.
speech followed by the 2 sessions prepared for the discussion. So please make your way to the venue and take your seat. 이제 곧 특별 연설을 시작하겠습니다. 지금 서 계시는 분들, 밖에 계시는 분들께서는요, 행사장 안으로 들어오셔서 자리에 앉아 주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다. 저희 특별 연설을 시작으로 세션이 차례차례 진행이 될 예정입니다. 특별 연설을 위해서 이제 모두 자리에 앉아 주시면 감사하겠습니다. So now we're going to have a special speech session shortly, so please take your seat. 네, 그러면 이제 특별 연설 바로 시작하겠습니다. 네, 모두 자리 정돈해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 네, 많은 우리 귀빈분들의 말씀 속에서도 오늘 또 언급이 되던 분인데요. 우리 마이크 던리비 알래스카 주지사님께서 여러분들을 위해서 특별 연설을 해주시겠습니다. 지금
We'll now
알래스카에서
invite
여러분들께 또
Governor
말씀을 위한 준비를
of
해주셨는데요. 자,
Alaska
그러면
to join us
뜨거운 박수와 함께
online.
우리 마이크 던리비 알래스카
So
주지사님을 맞아주시면
please
고맙겠습니다.
welcome him with the governor with warm round of applause.
Well, thank you, everybody. First of all, I want to congratulate Korea on its presidential election. You demonstrate to the world that your democratic values are well intact, and this is going to bode well for your future. Again, congratulations. I want to thank AmCham and the Korean Times for putting on this event, and especially my friend James Kim, who, when we went over there in March, was invaluable in terms of showing us around, getting us to understand the different business partners and governmental entities. So again, thank you, James. Just want to briefly talk to all of you about the prospects of Alaska natural gas. Many of you have heard about this project for decades, and this year this project is actually being accelerated with the help of President Trump and just the economics throughout the world. Alaska pioneered LNG export in 1969 to Japan. We were the first sovereign on the planet to export gas. Many people don't realize this. And for 50 years, we exported gas on a continual basis to Japan. I say this because that's what the future bodes as well for our friends in Korea and in Asia in general. And many of the countries in Asia recognize this. Taiwan, for example, has signed an LOI to offtake 6 million tons of gas. That would be the largest offtake of any single offtaker from any single project in the history of LNG, because they see the value of Alaska LNG, they see the value of American LNG, and they see the value in that partnership. Currently, as we speak, Glenfarne, the private enterprise that is leading this effort with Alaska LNG, is in Asia as we speak now. They're in Thailand, they're going to be going to Taiwan, and they may be going to other countries as well on this trip. They just announced this morning that there was an LOI signed in Thailand for 2 million tons of gas. Our friends in India are also very interested in Alaska LNG. The reason for that is security. Our friends know that if they get gas from America, if they get gas from Alaska, that trip for gas is shorter than just about any other place on the planet. Gas coming from Alaska takes a shorter amount of time to get to Korea than it would be from the Gulf of America, than it would be for going around South America, and in many cases than it would be coming from the Middle East. And that gas would be going through uncontested waters. This project that I'm referring to has all of its permits. We know about all of the gas, how much gas the project actually has, because we recycle that gas for many decades on the North Slope. We are currently going through a FEED process to update the cost of the pipe itself. The reason for that is Alaska itself needs this gas as well for our utilities and for our bases. And this is one of the reasons why we hope that Korea is very interested in this gas. As we know, we have over 28,000 American troops in Korea with our allies in South Korea, almost 70 different bases throughout Korea. It's our hope that Korea partakes in this Alaska gas, not just as an off-taker, but also as a business partner. There'll be tremendous opportunities for shipping, for the steel itself for the pipe, for compressors, for modules. And of course, this all works well in those discussions on trade and tariffs, because Alaska gas is America's gas. And the last thing I would say is that gas for the future is really security. Security for our national defense, security for our economies going forward. The gas that Alaska has, some estimates up to 200 trillion cubic feet, could last for decades and decades and decades to come. And even though Korea is embarking upon a very rigorous approach to renewables, gas is still going to be important to make sure that the computers stay on, that the lights stay on, and that our economies can keep moving forward. So it's our hope that our Korean friends will partner with us, not just in the offtakes of gas, but also in the investment in the pipeline itself, which I think would bode well, again, for Korean companies. This project is estimated to be between $44 and $50 billion. The pipeline itself is estimated to be about $12 billion. We will know very shortly, within the next few months, the exact cost to build a pipeline itself in Alaska. Once we know that, sometime around November, Glenfarne plans to go immediately into FID, final investment decision, on that pipeline. Once that occurs, we anticipate that pipe and ancillary equipment and components will be ordered next spring, and that we could possibly see the first weld in the largest gas pipeline project in the world occur next summer or fall, delivering gas to Alaskans within 2 years and gas for export by 2030-31. So again, it's our hope that our Korean partners will seriously look at this project. We have a proven track record of sending gas to Asia uninterrupted. We have a proven track record of building very large projects. The Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline was completed in 1977, and it only took 2 years and 2 months to build that engineering marvel in Alaska. And so once again, I want to thank Amcham. I want to thank the people of Korea for your incredible economy, your incredible friendship with the United States. And it's our hope that we have a future friendship, a stronger friendship, not just between our countries, but between Alaska as well. We would love to be a partner going forward on energy, and we have the ability to do that. So again, I wish you nothing but the best. We look forward to having conversations with you. And again, I look forward to another trip over to Korea, hopefully to ink some deals as this pipeline project moves to fruition. So once again, thank you very much and good luck with your conference.
네, 멀리서 이렇게 또 시간 내서
Well,
좋은
thank you
말씀
so
해주시고
much,
또
and
국가
also
연설해
joining
주신
us all the
우리
way
마이크
from
더블유
Alaska
알래스카
Governor.
다시 한번 진심으로
Thank you so much
감사드립니다.
again for
언젠가 또 현장에서
being with us. I hope
함께하기를
someday we'll be
기대해보면서
able
좋은
to
메시지로
see you
가고요. 저희 이어서
offline
세션
and face to
이어가겠습니다.
face. Now we
말씀드린
will
것처럼
start
세션
with
1과 2
session 1.
패널 토론으로
We do
준비가 되어
have two
있습니다.
sessions
무대가 이미
which will be
세팅이 되어
carried
있는데요.
out in
자,
panel
그럼 첫 번째
discussions.
세션 주제
The
바로
stage
말씀해
is ready
드릴게요.
for the first
한미 경제
session. The
파트너십의
topic
미래,
of first session will be
관세에서
future-proofing
기술
Korea-U.S. economic
안보까지입니다.
partnership from
자,
tariffs to
좌장을
tech and
맡아주실 분을 소개
security.
올리겠습니다.
Let me
제임스 킴,
introduce
주한 미국
moderator
상공회의
for the
소개자
first
리스트
session,
대표이사님,
which will
그리고
be
패널리스트로 함께 해주실 분들입니다.
Chairman CEO
믹
James King
머베이님,
of
전
Amcham
백악관
Korea,
비서실장
and
직무대행님,
panelists we have former
김모환
White House
SK
Chief of
이노베이션 에너지
Staff
솔루션
Mick Mullaney
사업단장님,
and
헥터 비자레알,
Executive
GM
Vice
아시아
President Kim
태평양
Mohan of
사장님,
SK
그리고
Innovation
야콥
Energy
에드버그,
Solution
듀얼
Business
컴퍼니
Division,
사장님께서 함께
and
해주시겠습니다.
GM Asia
무대로
Pacific
모시겠습니다.
President Managing
주로
Director
맞이해주십시오.
Hector Bralea, and also GM Company Founder CEO Jacob Edberg. Please welcome them all to the stage with big round of applause.
믹 멀베이님께서는 이렇게 또
Now,
해외에서 접속을 해주셨고요.
Mr. Leini is joining us online from the U.S. Other panelists and as well as a moderator will take their seats, and as soon as they're
Great.
ready,
Good
we
morning
can
again.
get started.
Nick, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you fine, thank you.
Great seeing you again. I am so honored to help moderate today's panel discussion. Not sure if you heard a lot, but we had a very good session this morning. And Nick, what I want to start off with is if you could all just basically introduce yourself, but let me help a little bit with Nick Mulvaney. Nick spoke to AmCham several years ago during COVID. And I think he is one of the true experts we have here today, since he was the former chief of staff to President Trump. So we expect a lot of interesting dialogues with you today, Mick. But why don't we ask you to just give a quick self-introduction on what you're doing these days.
Sure, James, and thank you so much for having me back. You know, you mentioned that discussion that we had online at the beginning of COVID. What you don't realize, I think, is that I believe that this chamber was the very first group to ask me to speak after I left the White House. So it means a great deal to me, and it's a true privilege to be invited back. The Chief of Staff to the President of the United States, any Chief of Staff, has a unique position in that you are the only person who gets paid to tell the President what he doesn't want to hear. It's a very, very difficult job to do. Many people made fun of Donald Trump or criticized him for having 4 chiefs of staff in his first term. Barack Obama had 4 as well. The life expectancy of a chief of staff is very short. Many presidents of the United States don't like hearing what they don't want to hear. They surround themselves with people who agree with them most of the time. And the chief of staff is usually the person who tells them the stuff that no one else wants to. It's a fascinating sort of introduction to the business world. I was in the private sector before I went to the White House, and I will take this quick opportunity, James, to tell your businessmen and women who are there that if you do not have someone like a chief of staff working for you, if you do not have someone whose job it is to tell you the things you don't want to hear, then you have a blind spot. You must have somebody who you trust, who has credibility with you, who can tell you from time to time that things are not exactly as they appear. And when that breaks down at your business, it could be a failure, and if it breaks down in the White House, it could be a colossal failure. So that is the role of Chief of Staff, and I say that as I look forward to the conversation tonight and maybe telling you folks some things you already know, some telling you things you don't know, and then possibly telling you some things you don't want to hear.
Thank you so much. You know, I've been a big fan of Mick, all these years, and I will continue to be a big fan of yours, Mick.
Thanks, James.
So just moving on, maybe we can start with you, Hector, as well as a special, introduction for yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. First of all, thank you for the invitation. Chairman Son, thank you for the invitation to this great event. I'm very happy to be here. So as you mentioned, I am Hector Villarreal. I look after GM operations in the GM Asia Pacific region, including GM Korea. And let me tell you a little bit about GM Korea. We are proud to be the largest foreign direct investor in the sector. We operate 3 manufacturing hubs, and together employ more like 11,000 talented team members here in Korea. Our engineering center, we have 2 engineering centers, one in Bupyeon and the other one in Seogna. We have 3,000 employees who are working on designing vehicles for more than 20 vehicle programs. So it is an important operation. We are very happy to contribute to the Korea economy. Last year, we produced actually close to that 500 million cars. We produce here the Chevrolet trucks and the Trailblazer, very successful in the global markets, also very successful here in Korea. And one of the targets that we have for this year is to solidify our position in the domestic market here. It's a very competitive market, and we need to do better selling cars in Korea.
And as some of you know, I used to work at GM and work very closely with Hector. One of the
Sorry, I think Jim, sorry to interrupt, Jim is very humble. He was actually my boss. And the problem with Jim is that once he's your boss, he is always your boss.
Not true at all, but I do want to say that Hector was one of the best executives that I had a chance to work with at GM, which is the reason why I think GM is making new strides to be even more successful here in this market. So let's move to Jacob from GR Korea.
Well, thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here. I feel that the light, the very bright scene here is a little bit symptomatic of what we are looking at, a very bright future. My name is Jacob Edberg. I'm the president and CEO of the GR company, also director of GR Korea. We basically do what is in our name, so government relations. We help our clients understanding and relate to policy, political, regulatory challenges and opportunities, and there are plenty of them right now. And thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very much looking forward to today.
And Jacob, you should know your people here in Korea, they're doing a very good job, especially Jiyeon Moon, who did not pay me to say this, but she's a terrific leader here. So thank you for putting a good team together.
Thank you very much.
And lastly, one of my favorite Korean companies, SK. So we have Moo-Hwan Kim joining us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Moo-Hwan Kim from SK Innovation. I'm leading Energy Solution Business Division in SK Innovation, which is the energy part of the SK Group. This is my 23rd year in SK, and I actually started my career from SK Telecom, which James has mentioned earlier. I'm really proud of. And since the beginning of our group, I think you know better than me about SK Group, but since the beginning of the group, I think U.S. is very crucial global partner, all the way down. And up to now, SK Group invested about $35 billion in the U.S. Entirely, and out of them, $23 billion for energy business. And SK Innovation solely actually deployed the capital as much as $13 billion up to now, which is tremendous volume that actually we can invest. So U.S. is not really just the marketplace that we've been playing, but more a really strategic ground that we really want to grow and collaborate with many folks in the market. So really look forward to seeing that this platform serves as a really constructive opportunity to speak out our plan and our vision going forward. Thank you.
And as I mentioned earlier today, I just came back from a huge signing ceremony between AWS and SK. I think that will change the game in AI for both countries. So congratulations. So I know that we have limited time. So let me ask a question to Mick, starting off the gate here. Mick, I'm sure you're aware that Korea is going through a lot of interesting but very challenging situations. You got the China issue, you got all the political uncertainty that is finally resolved after we have a new president 2 weeks ago, and the tariffs discussion that President Trump has undertaken with Korea is obviously a big challenge. Hey, besides you being the chief of staff, I know you're also the person in charge of OMB, the Office of Management and Budget for the White House. So I think your perspective would be very important because you are the only one here who spent time with President Trump day in and day out.
Yeah, I spent almost 4 years in the White House the first time around. If I wanted to look at U.S.-Korea relations, these are the things I would look at. Number one, tariffs. Tariffs are real. Tariffs are what Donald Trump likes to use as leverage. There was a little bit of uncertainty in this country as to whether or not, when he announced the new tariffs on April 2nd, a few months ago, as to whether or not they would be permanent tariffs designed to sort of encourage domestic American manufacturing. Would we be making shoes again in the U.S.? Or were they leverage points for larger trade deals. I think now we know the answer to that, James, and the tariffs are there as negotiating leverage. Donald Trump wants to renegotiate trade deals with all of our trade partners. That's probably not making news. This is, and I think people misunderstand Donald Trump in many ways. One of them is that Donald Trump knows that if I negotiate a deal with you, James, and I win and you lose in that deal, and then I go to another one of your panelists and I negotiate a deal with them and I win in that deal and they lose, then the third member of the panel won't want to do business with me. Donald Trump doesn't do business like that for that reason. Donald Trump tries to negotiate deals that allow both sides to win. And I think that is lost in sort of the discussion about American tariffs. Are American tariffs bad for America? I think you could make the case. They certainly increase prices and so forth and have the tendency to do so, at least in the short run. But I think as leverage towards doing better trade deals, they could be good for America and good for our trading partners. And I think you'll see more and more of that. I've been a little disappointed with the rate of the deals that have been cut. I think we've announced a deal with the UK, maybe sort of the precursors of a deal with China and so forth, but we've not had the number of trade deals that I hope that we've had. I know that there's been Korean trade delegation in the United States several times in the last couple of months, and I hope that those discussions continue to be fruitful. But I think it's important to know that a good deal to Donald Trump is also a good deal for the people that he's working with, because otherwise no one wants to deal with him again, and he can't have that. That's something he brings from his time in the private sector. Now, the other thing you mentioned is the sort of larger relationships. And I think that the U.S.-American relationship will be looked at specifically through the lens of how it impacts China. There are very, very few things that are bipartisan in Washington, D.C. I've never seen my government as divided as it is right now. There's a short list of things that both Democrats and Republicans share and agree on, and one of them is concern about China. And we continue to look at our overseas relationships through that lens, through that perspective. How does our relationship with Korea impact China? How does our relationship with Japan impact China? How does our relationship with Australia impact China? That is going to be a central focus of all of our discussions. We are interested not in hurting China. That's not what this is about. This is about trying to encourage China to join the first rank of nations. Put yourself in our shoes from back in 2020. I left the White House in March of 2020. I was the chairman of the first COVID task force before Mike Pence took over. China was not a good actor. China was not sharing information with the rest of the world, and the rest of the world suffered dramatically as a result. Korea would not act that way. Canada would not act that way. The United Kingdom would not act that way. Those are leading nations of the world, first-tier nations. And Donald Trump wants China not to fail. That's not what he wants. He wants China to join those tiers of nations. And all of our relationships, most specifically with Korea, will be looked at through that lens.
So Mick, thank you so much for your very valuable insights that only a guy like you could offer. So let me turn it over to Jacob. So Jacob, one takeaway from our visit to Washington, D.C. for our door knock was the U.S.-Korea relations seem very, very high. They're all insisting on U.S., Korea, Japan trilateral relationship. So how can President Lee Jae-myung, President Trump, and Prime Minister Ishiba work together to enhance this trilateral cooperation, which will only help with China compete?
Well, thank you very much. I think that led very well. The China angle is, of course, the key here. At the same time, I think I would also echo the fact that there is completely a consensus in Washington, D.C. on China, and I think there is consensus growing also with Japan and Korea on that issue, and highlighting that the challenge now that the race of China poses is incredibly. We have three rather newly elected leaders. As I said earlier this morning, I think trade is a lot about trust. So first of all, just having the leaders getting together, and it's been very difficult to get that organized, but just getting it together and showing all the cards. It looks like we have very practical leaders in the three countries wanting to see practical things done. Not very, and so that's useful. I think also we have seen recently quite a warming up of the relations with the perception of Japan in Korea, and the perception of Korea in Japan has been improving tremendously over the past 10 years, but also recently over the 5 years. So I think we are also redefining the economic relationship here, and I think this is really important. I want to make this message. What I get from the conversations in DC is that the time of Japan and Korea basically producing and selling, and the US is paying for it, that's over. It's not coming back. Only that economic model. What is required, and what I see from the US government, and what I think US is expecting, is some sort of agency which is on the Japanese and the Korean side, in where basically we, and I mean Japan and Korea, come up with ideas of how these issues can not be solved. It will not be the US coming with laundry lists and then the bureaucracies in Korea and Japan figuring out how can we get away with this, how can we get away with this, like parents telling children what to do, and they do as little as possible to just check the boxes. And this requires completely new thinking, both in Korea and in Japan, on how to also be the consumers, the buyers of US goods. And I think this is really a challenge. I think in a trilateral, the security alliance aside, which is extremely important, but from a trilateral perspective, Japan and Korea faces this same challenge, and I think a dialogue around that, and I think coordination between Japan and Korea, not how to get away from US demands, but actually how to be a meaningful economic partner is really critical at this point in time.
And I think your perspective on Japan is very helpful, because I know you have a big operation in Japan. So thank you. So I'm going to follow up with you a little bit, Mick, on the trilateral situation. I just know that the previous administration of both Korea and the US, they really focused heavily on the trilateral relations, especially between Korea and Japan, given the frayed relationship historically between the two countries. Where does President Trump fit into this trilateral conversation? And how does he feel about the U.S.-Korea-Japan partnership?
Yeah, his natural starting point, James, is that he doesn't really like multilateral discussions. It was one of the reasons we never engaged on the Trans-Pacific Partnership when we came into office in 2017. I was there at the beginning of the administration when I was the budget director, and we talked about the TPP, and he said, look, I don't like multilateral discussions. That's not his natural starting point. He wants to deal one-on-one. By the way, he also wants to deal principle to principle. I think one of the biggest challenges he's going to face in dealing with China is that China wants to work things through lower level functionaries first and then move up the system. Donald Trump wants to work the exact opposite, which is talk president to president and have that filter down, but that's not your question. Generally speaking, we did talk regularly about the relationship between Korea and Japan, and Trump's attitude was, look, I don't understand it. He understands it, but he wants it to he doesn't want it to interfere with what's happening today. We all have issues that go back 70, 80 years. America, for the most part, has moved on from those. We have an excellent relationship with Japan. We have an excellent relationship with Germany, for example. And Trump kept, wondering, why is this an impediment today? We know the answer to the question. We know why it is. But I think he's interested in seeing us move beyond that. That's not very interesting to anybody watching this. What is interesting, I hope, is this. I think he would be more than happy to help that happen. I think he sees it in America's best interest. Go back to your America first sort of perspective. It's in America's best interest for our friends to be friends with each other. for Japan and Korea and Australia, and with a growing perspective, Vietnam, to get along and to be looking for ways to encourage that. Donald Trump, at the end of the day, remember, he's a businessman who happened to be elected president, and he still looks at the world as a businessman would. And as a businessman, you have past business associates, current business associates, and future potential business associates. And I think he just wants to see everybody as either a current or a future potential associate who's able to put the things in the past behind so that you can work together in the future. That's the perspective I think he's going to bring to the tripartite, the trilateral conversations between U.S., Korea, and Japan.
I like your line, Mick, about how President Trump likes to see friends be friends with each other. And that's Japan and Korea. Now, let's talk about the U.S.-Korea Technology Alliance, because I think that's a very, very important one. In our trip to Washington, D.C., a lot of our meetings centered on the U.S.-Korea Alliance as a true technology partnership. In fact, just last Friday, I mentioned how I visited your Ulsan data center agreement between AWS and SK. And I think SK is truly leading that whole charge on the alliance. So, Muhan, let me ask you this question. SK, you mentioned, invested about $30-some-odd billion in America, all in technology. So why and what are the most promising areas do you see for a bilateral industrial cooperation?
Thank you, James, for that question. So I think deepening alliance of U.S.-Korea technology collaboration really varies very widely across the surge of the AI at this point. But if I talk about my focus point, which is in energy, I would like to bring up nuclear side as a primary one. We see that lots of advanced reactors now under development in the U.S. market now, and lots of new technology has been deployed and tried to be commercialized even at this point. But I think that this is a really great chance for us to just see around what sort of an aspect that we can collaborate in many ways as a complementary aspect. So given the fact that U.S. is really good at developing new innovative and breakthrough technology of nuclear, which is SMR, small modular reactor. But in terms of commercializing that, I think that there is another part that we need to take into account, which is construction, engineering, and operation and commissioning, right? I think that Korea has a really great capability to execute those kind of capability in the field very well. So I think combining very innovative technology from U.S. of the nuclear with Korea's EPC and commissioning capability really create a very synergetic effect for conveying and delivering the nuclear plant on budget within the time frame. I think that this is one of the ways that I really think that very seriously. What sort of actual structure that we can collaborate. But the other part as related to nuclear might be fuel side. So no matter what sort of a reactor of the nuclear, like SMR, which is an advanced one, should be activated, there's a necessity of all the fuel side, which is another advanced technology. And given the fact that 40% of the fuel side is still relying on Russian one, I think there is a really substantial change to replace that sort of supply chain dependency to the allies countries. I think this is one of the ways that Korea can collaborate with the U.S. To expedite all the fuel production for more like extending the footprint of the SMR in the long run. So those are two aspects that SK Korea and U.S. can collaborate and cooperate for a technological advancement going forward.
And Mick, I'm not even sure if a lot of the American citizens are even aware of SK and how much they've invested in America. So I hope that the U.S. citizens living in America can have a more appreciation for investors like SK. because these guys are really helping accelerate the technology alliance. And earlier today, we had live Governor Dunleavy from Alaska speak about the Alaska LNG project. So my question to you, Mick, is what are some of the key enablers that could accelerate, whether it's LNG, whether it's the private-public partnerships that companies like SK, have entered?
If I had to give you one answer, it would be exactly what Dunleavy was talking about. I met him several times, by the way, the governor of Alaska. I'm very impressed. We always used to stop off in Alaska on our flights back from Asia going to the United States. Very impressive gentleman. There's one word to answer your question, which is energy. There's very few things, James, that Donald Trump really cares about. And this is not unusual to Donald Trump. Most presidents have to deal with 100 different issues, 1,000 different issues. But they run for office because of 5 or 6 that they really, really care about. Donald Trump really cares about energy. He really cares about defense spending. He really cares about getting out of forever wars. He cares about immigration. He cares about energy tremendously. It's one of the driving things that made him want to run for office. And when he talks about the deregulatory agenda in the United States, making it easier to get energy to market, that's a priority for him and for every single cabinet secretary. Keep in mind, as chief of staff, I used to run the cabinet. So I had regular interactions with the Secretary of Energy, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Interior, and all of them were tasked by Donald Trump to do more on energy production, driving down the cost of energy, driving up exports of energy, driving new innovations in energy. The previous speaker was correct to mention small modular nuclear. That was something that Secretary of Energy Rick Perry spent a great deal of his time under in the first administration. Anything that Korea and the U.S. can do together on energy is going to move to the head of the class. It's going to get the attention not only of Donald Trump, and again, Donald Trump has, 1,000 things to worry about. If I called him tonight and said, you know what, boss, we should talk about energy agreements with South Korea, he's going to say, Mick, I just cut a peace deal in the United States, in the Mideast. I don't have time for this. And he'd be right. But if you call the Secretary of the Interior, if you call the Secretary of Energy and said, look, we want to talk about energy agreements between the United States and Korea, I don't care what it looks like. I don't care if it's solar. I don't care if it's natural gas. I don't care if it's nuclear. I don't care if it's old-fashioned oil. It doesn't make any difference. The man cares about energy. And when he cares about it, the rest of his team does. So the answer to your question is, what's the first place I would go to continue to strengthen a relationship? That would be the answer.
Wow. As you know, I spent 2 days with Governor Dunleavy in Korea. And I found him to be a very, very passionate and a visionary leader. And he wants to get this LNG project here in Korea done on a win-win basis. We also had a National Assembly woman who spoke today, and she referenced the importance of LNG, but of course, in a way that makes sense for Korea. So we will stay tuned, and your insight just now was very helpful. So just moving along, Korea has been the #1 investor in the United States for several years. And in the 40 meetings we had in the U.S., it does not seem like there's a lot of recognition of the Korean companies investing in America. In fact, our studies have shown that 80% of the $140 billion that Korea has invested in America is residing in the red states, whether it's Texas, whether it's Indiana, whether it's Georgia, Tennessee, those kind of cities. But for some reason, it does not seem to resonate. So how do we ask the Lee administration to better promote Korea's economic contributions in alignment with Donald Trump's America First agenda, especially in revitalizing U.S. manufacturing in strategic industries, including auto and energy? And maybe we can ask Jacob to get us started.
Well, thank you. How to communicate? It's absolutely true, and Korea has committed a lot of further investments, and investments are going on. Factories are being built, and I think they're also very, extremely appreciated employers. There is one thing on the recognition, perhaps in the president's eyes of the investments. Somehow that is seemingly right now. It's a good offset, and maybe let me first start. I think that maybe Korea can learn from late Prime Minister Abe of Japan. He was very forcefully doing the same argument and successfully doing the same argument. And he had a map of the U.S., and I've seen that map so many times, where they point each of the investments and exactly how much that is and how many jobs that is. And that was shown in every meeting, working level meeting up to the president's meeting. And there was one PowerPoint slide where it's just pointing out the different investments and how they have been going up, and also showing some of the trade deficits and Japan's relatively still in total number high, but relative to other countries declining, and how the economy is integrating. So I think there is a communications side to that, which is clearly important. I will stop there. I think we could talk a little bit more about trade negotiating strategies, but we probably will save that for a little bit later.
Okay, and Muhan, I'd like to ask you the same question, because with SK being such a huge investor in America, do you feel that you're getting the right attention from the U.S.?
Yes or no. So as a matter of fact, I think Korea's contribution to U.S. American first policy might be really clear, given the circumstances we already have. For example, the battery business. So, 3 major Korean company of the battery has been investing as much as like $54 billion US up to now, which is tremendous, size. And their capacity of the production is about like 480 gigawatt hour, which is double a volume that US entirely has imported from China last year, which is a really tremendous number. Right? But still, we didn't really have proper recognition from the U.S. government that battery is really crucial and strategic asset for U.S. security, national security, for example. So, I mean, as you probably know, battery is not really just one single component for EV. It's just more extensively, used for lots of equipment and, military, vehicles, and other equipment that we need to think about for the security guys. And of course, the grid ESS is one of the really crucial factors that, now U.S. is really relying on Chinese-made battery. So I think, there need to be some substantial change from perception, what the battery looks like. We often talk about the batteries might be new oil for our electrification era going forward. So I think we need to convey and deliver that message to U.S. government that battery might be one of the really crucial assets that U.S. already have, and they need to leverage that asset for their further development of the market and industry.
Thank you, Mohan. And Nick, just as a follow-up, I remember when I was in D.C., whenever we referenced President Lee Jae-myung, people really did not know who he was, right? Obviously, he just became president 2 weeks ago. We had a special runoff very quickly, snap election. So people did not know who President Lee Jae-myung is. In fact, I saw a lot of potential discrepancies on the description, which we wanted to kind of ratify and correct. But you've been in the White House. You've had one of the most important jobs in the White House. Even back in those days, how does the White House look at Korea? And how do you think President Trump would look at President Lee Jae-myung and Korea?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Here's how, generally speaking, and keep in mind, and James, we didn't get a chance to talk about this. I was a member of the United States Congress for 6 years before I was in the White House. So I've been both in the legislature and in the executive branch. So let me see if I can answer your question this way. A lot of our perceptions of foreign nations is driven by consumer goods more than anything else. And I'm sitting here listening to the other two panelists talk about all the Korean investment in the United States, and batteries is a huge piece of the puzzle, and I get that, but it's not a consumer good. People don't know the battery that goes into their car or into their other appliance and so forth. We know LG, we know Kia, we know Hyundai, and I'm hard-pressed to go much deeper than that on the list. So that is a challenge that you face, because it's not just the American public who perceives things through the sort of the eyes of the consumer product, but it's also members of Congress. If you and I were going to sit down and have dinner one night and talk about how to do outreach to the members of Congress, it would be educating them on the things that they don't see every single day. They see Hyundai cars, they see Kia, they see LG televisions and refrigerators and all the other appliances and so forth. But they don't see the intermediate goods that go into other products, and that is going to be a large challenge. You asked me a larger question, which is how does the White House perceive Korea? You know, the first time around, in the first administration, President Moon was there. I remember visiting with him at the presidential house before we went up to the DMZ to meet with Chairman Kim from the North. And we perceive them as being a partner. A military partner, not first and foremost, but certainly high up on the list was the military relationship because of the history and so forth, because of the presence of the U.S. troops. That is the nature of the relationship. The challenge that you face is that it's a new relationship, a relatively new relationship. I just got back from speaking in Ireland and the United Kingdom for a couple of different days, and these are relationships, they go back several hundred years. And in my country, several hundred years is a long time. I know that's not the case in Korea, but it's the case with us. We have these long-standing relationships with other countries. They're cultural. We speak the same language as they do in Britain. We speak the same language as they do in Australia and so forth. So there's going to be cultural challenges to the relationship. Doesn't mean it's negative. It just means there's hurdles that don't exist in our other relationships with our other friends. It's a tremendous opportunity to educate people as to what the nature of the relationship is, but it's going to take work. There's no question about it. This is not the type of natural bilateral relationship that we might have, say, with Britain or with, say, Ireland or Australia. And that's going to be a challenge.
You know, Mick is from the great state of South Carolina. So I guess this starts with South Carolina. You know, how does Korea Inc. Educate and kind of create some excitement about Korea in your state? And if we can do South Carolina, we can do anywhere.
Yeah, what a great question. I'll give you, listen, I'll give away some of the secrets I've given to other countries. I'm good friends. I was the special envoy to Northern Ireland, and I have a close relationship both with the United Kingdom and with the Republic of Ireland. And several years ago, somebody asked me a similar question. They said, Mick, how do we get through Washington? The bureaucracy in Washington is really rough. How do we go deeper? How do we develop those relationships? And I pointed out to them, look, there's 50 states here who want to do business. You just had the governor of Alaska on here to talk about the relationship between your country and Alaska. You could do that with all 50 states. The British and the Irish are in the process now of cutting free trade deals with individual states. I know that sounds outrageous, but keep in mind, under our federal system in the United States, there are certain things that states deal with directly. The state of South Carolina has complete control over the practice of law. The state of South Carolina has nearly complete control over the sale of insurance. The state of South Carolina has some control over banking and other financial services. All states do. Ireland has cut a deal, I think, with Texas on the practice of law and the providing of financial services and so forth. Tremendous opportunities here. And so many of the individual states, James, are now looking to develop these relationships. I remember, and I'll stop with this, when I was a state lawmaker, this is going back 20 years now, I was in the state legislature. Nobody knew who I was. It was not important. But the governor of South Carolina asked me to go to China with him on a delegation. We sent a state delegation from South Carolina to Dalian in China, to the World Economic Forum, to try and develop the relationship directly, and that's the key, directly between South Carolina and China at the time. Those opportunities continue to exist today, and I encourage you to explore them. I'd be more than happy to help you with them.
Great. Great, insight. And I will be sure that the Korean government understands that they should spend more time, in the local states as possible. So now let's talk about something a little bit more serious. We have the July 8th deadline looming. We have the Trade Minister Yeo Hun-gu, who's physically in Washington, D.C. Today. And he'll be meeting with Ambassador Jameson Greer and Secretary Howard Lutnick. I actually have a lot of confidence with Trade Minister Yeo Hun-gu. He was educated in the U.S. He had chances to pursue more of a lucrative financial career, but he became a government official in Korea. So I think that he's doing this job for all the right reasons. So I hope that he'll be very successful. So now, what are some of the key considerations that he should, partake in during his negotiations? And maybe we can ask you, Jacob, for your suggestions.
Sure. So we heard earlier that there has been disappointingly few trade deals announced, and I think that's a general sense. And the UK deal, after UK deal, not much has happened. And the reason I understand why not much has happened is that the positions are very different. And I think it goes back to for all of the major trading partners are not really sharing the position, are quite far away from what and also to a certain extent having difficulty in imagining or understanding what's good enough or what's the end game is and how a good deal would look like from the US perspective, where that is previously been very well communicated with very strong requirements, sectoral, but there is very little that's coming out. So you have that, but you also have the timeline to think of. And Besant said that the other day he hinted on extension. There are 19 ongoing negotiations with trade partners, and all of them cannot be solved in 3 weeks. That doesn't really matter. That doesn't really work. So the best you can wish for is to have an overall agreement on the principles and pushing for an overall agreement with the principles in good faith and trying as hard as you can, coming up with measures which you believe would be useful for actually balancing the trade deficit. That's really what's mattered right now, and anything else is. And I think also for the U.S. Unless it goes to the president, until it goes to the president, not much is happening, and from that perspective, I think that Korea would need to come up with. This is again, what I said. This goes against the DNA of any bureaucracy to voluntarily give up things and offering things. But if you look at the USTR report, it's pretty clear what some of the issues are. And to me, it seems to be a very reasonable thing to, for instance, look at on the beef side. You have a 30-month for cattle. You can probably review that. Testing for vehicles standards can probably be reviewed, but it has to be something symbolical. And I think that Korea will have to think hard on something that can be perceived really well, but for the time being, I think it's just to negotiate in as good faith as possible, coming up with ideas, and then when the deadline comes, hope that Korea, hopefully reach an agreement, but that's quite unlikely. At least get another extension. But you have, on top of that, you have to think about the 232 tariffs, which is really, really hard. That's where you have the automotive tariffs and the steel tariffs, which are not on the negotiating table right now. So it's really hard, and that's what really matters to Korea, and not so much the bilateral tariffs. So it's not an easy task that he has right now. But I think the advice is just keep on talking, come up with ideas, but also do not panic, because Korea is not the only partner that is under these time pressures.
Yeah, I think you mentioned negotiating good faith during these times. But Nick, is that really enough? You know, let's just be a little bit pragmatic, right? We only have 3 weeks left. When you were in the Trump administration, Trump 1.0, the trade deficit was at $20 billion. Even at that time, President Trump told us it's too high. It's now $65 billion, right? But let's not forget, $140 billion have gone into U.S. from Korean companies, which have added to that. And lastly, the topic of non-tariff barriers. At AmCham, we identified 66 non-tariff barriers, some of which Jacob referenced. So what can 2 countries do to get a deal done that makes it a win-win for both countries?
And the win-win is the right way to look at it. As I mentioned before, that's what Trump wants. A couple of things people forget. Back in, I think it was late 2017, 2018, Trump went to a G7 meeting, I believe it was in Canada, and his European friends were giving him a hard time about his tariff posture. And I think out of frustration, he said, look, let's just do 0, 0, 0. 0 tariffs, 0 non-tariff barriers, and 0 government subsidies. And of course, the Europeans looked at their shoes and sort of trotted off because they knew they couldn't do that. But that's where Donald Trump is coming from. In that moment, I think you saw Donald Trump sort of really saying what he feels about trade, which is all he wants is a level playing field. He believes that American businesses can succeed if they're on a level playing field. And I got to tell you, I've seen him have this conversation enough. If they can't succeed on a level playing field, he's not really interested in helping them. He's interested in taking away the impediments, but not in giving them an unfair advantage. Trump is looking for balance. On the deadline, by the way, I think you're absolutely right to think that an extension is possible. And the fact that the trade delegation from Korea has been there several times and is there right now, you've told me something I didn't know about them being there now. That counts. That does count. The effort counts. Trump is not looking again to penalize anybody. And being there and entering into good faith negotiations, I would expect that deadline to be extended on a country by country basis. But all of the countries that have been there and engaged in conversations, I would expect them to get an extension. Finally, I'll say this, and I would give this piece of advice to anybody dealing with Donald Trump on anything. Don't just ask for something. Trump gets tired very quickly of countries from all over the world, foreign leaders, delegations, whatever, coming in and asking for things. It does get tedious after a while. I suggested to a colleague of mine from a foreign nation one time when he came in to meet with the president, he says, how do you want to handle this meeting? I said, look, offer us something. Have a deal. Engage in a negotiation. Don't come in and just ask for something. And these folks, actually, it was a brilliant piece of diplomacy, came in and said essentially, look, Mr. President, we want this tariff treatment and so forth, and you know that we do. But we got to tell you this, here's what we'll do. We will offer you beneficial treatment for Americans who have retired in our country when it comes to our healthcare system. Right now, they're not allowed access to our healthcare system. But I tell you what, we do a deal and we'll let the Americans who retire in this country to get healthcare in our system. Trump loved that idea. It was a negotiation. They were doing deals. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to give. And to be honest with you, he doesn't want to take. He wants a give and a take that, again, allow a win-win situation. So to your trade delegation, to anybody dealing with Trump, yeah, represent your country, represent your best interests. I get all of that. But figure out how to do a deal where Trump gets something and gives something at the same time.
A couple of the sectors that I think President Trump has focused on are autos, steel, and aluminum. We haven't heard from you at all, Hector, but let me just ask you a couple of questions. You had mentioned that GM Korea produces, 500,000 cars in Korea that are exported to the U.S. Hyundai exports around 1 million cars that are made here to the United States. Obviously, the tariff that they're considering, which fluctuates a lot, could be pretty significant to both of these countries. So what are you at GM Korea thinking about, and what are you doing to really help enhance GM vehicle sales in Korea? Because the domestic market is also very important for you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, definitely taking proactive measures to be sustainable is what we need to do. And as you know, as you mentioned, the auto industry is undergoing major transformation, and GM is not immune. So far, we have been able to maintain Korea in production, but it's only because we have taken measures. As you have heard, we recently announced a strategic decision to make our operations more efficient. And we are doing that because we want to continue selling in Korea, and we want to be successful in Korea. And I think it's important that we have an engagement with the stakeholders, and we allow those transformations to take place without having excessive discussion as to the motives of the transformation. This is needed to be successful in Korea. Now, if you ask me, I think you mentioned GM Korea exports a lot of vehicles to the world globally, and we only import a handful of them. We believe that achieving a more fair trade balance between the countries that operate is important. You mentioned the campaign that we signed with you, the MOU for Buy American. I think that is very important. We want to see more GM vehicles in Korea. Korea is a very competitive market, and defining a policy that allows foreign direct investment companies to stay in Korea, we think it would be very important. And that might require incentives, that might require tax exceptions, and other things to make sure that we are successful in this foreign market.
You know, for the audience, the Buy America campaign that Hector just spoke about was an MOU with the chairman of SK, who is also the chairman of the very important Korea Chamber of Commerce. So this MOU really positions GM Korea vehicles to be included in the fleet for all the KCCI members. And if I'm not mistaken, Hector, I believe Chairman Choi Tae-won, on the spot, said, yes, I will buy a few more GM cars immediately. And that's the power of the Buy America campaign. And we hope that next time President Trump visits Korea, he'll see a lot more GM Escalades and other cars of that nature. Because I know that's what makes him happy. Is that correct, Mick? He loves American cars in Korea, right?
He does, and he doesn't understand why folks don't buy them. I've often encouraged foreign countries where I've spoken to simply let American cars in, simply because I think that there's a taste difference. I'm not sure. GM is certainly an exception, but I mean, generally speaking, folks around the world like smaller vehicles than we produce in this country. It would not be difficult to allow more American cars in, because I just don't think they take that much of the domestic markets overseas. But yet, no, Donald Trump does care about automobiles. Keep in mind, he sort of sees the world through the perspective of 1978 or 1980, when the big three American, Chrysler, Ford, and General Motors were sort of the world powerhouses for automobiles. Cars continue to be very, very important for him, absolutely.
Yeah. And if I may add, Jim, I think you mentioned it, harmonization of the requirements of the standards would allow us to bring more vehicles into the country and enable greater presence in the Korean market.
I know we have around 5 minutes left. So what I want to do is just hear from, from some of you, but just what are some of the policy improvements that Korea can make? Because we all know that I've been promoting, helping set up Korea as a regional headquarters of Asia. Mick, we have 5,000, right, multinational companies in Singapore, 1,400 in Hong Kong, 900 in Shanghai. in this beautiful country with outstanding infrastructure, less than 100? It doesn't make sense. So let's hear why aren't U.S. companies setting up more here in Korea, and what should they change? Jacob.
Well, there are some geographical issues as well, but I wouldn't say normally that Seoul is too much further away from many other Asian capitals than Singapore is, because it was sort of on the other end. So Korea is not the only country that's considering this. So if you go, I was sort of looking at it from the trade perspective, going back. If you were setting up headquarters, it's basically tax and migration issues that are the key considerations for anyone. So you're seeing more and more, if you want to have and then it's also access to work opportunities for spouses is also another extremely important, which is meaning basically immigration and visa status. Tax, income tax, really important. Visa, access to working visas for not only the expats but also for the spouses, which is an issue many times. And then you have also visas for helpers. You need with most, and that's where. But tax on, of course, company tax, but also private income tax. That's really what's driving headquarter decisions. So, corporate income tax, private personal income tax, visa. It's quite simple. It's just like that.
But
Korea has all the infrastructure necessary.
But let me add a few more. You know, the labor inflexibility has always been difficult. Simply put, you cannot hire and fire employees here in Korea like in the U.S., where it's the employment at will concept. And second, the CEO risk in Korea is also very, very challenging. And Mick, I'm not sure if you know, but in Korea, the CEO is personally at risk for anything that can happen under their watch. So we have CEOs who can go to prison for anything that could happen in their watch. So I think those are some of the policy issues that we want to just at least message back to the Korean government. But in the balance of the time we have, I want to just ask you, Mick, we have the APEC summit happening here in Korea in October. Obviously, it's very, very important for President Trump to be here in Korea. We know that President Xi Jinping from China is fully committed on coming. Given your extensive experience, what deal should President Trump sign here in the APEC summit for him to come to Korea?
Well, you hate to think that it would take that long to get a trade deal, but I certainly think that would be on the table. I have no idea if your national airline is considering buying any Boeing jets, but you saw the impact that had in Qatar. Trump likes big deals. He likes announcing big deals, and those deals take months and sometimes years to negotiate. Anybody who thinks that, you know, Qatar agreed to buy Boeing jets while Trump was there doesn't understand how that works. When we went to Vietnam in 2019, when I was chief of staff, the Vietnamese airlines announced a huge Boeing purchase at the time. Trump likes the pomp and circumstance of a big deal. So maybe it's trade, maybe it's airplanes, maybe it's something on automobiles. I don't know. But he does like things that make the front page of the news. And anything you've got that factors into that would be helpful. I wasn't aware of the CEO risk. By the way, that's a real concern. Your regulatory environment is real. I'm not familiar with the tax environment or the immigration environment, but what you've just mentioned to me, I just got back from New York City. I was there all week last week speaking to groups of CEOs, and I got to tell you, they would think twice about setting up organizations in Korea if they had the risk of going to jail. So that's a real consideration. But when it comes to Trump, he likes good news coverage back home. So figure out a way to get that to happen.
Well, since you talked about the national, airline of Korea, I was just with the chairman of Korean Airlines recently, and just a few months ago, they signed off on 50 Boeing aircraft for Korean Airlines. So that's a huge, signing.
Trump would love that, by the way. Trump would
Yes.
love that. And by the way, keep in mind, you might be underutilizing your natural allies in the relationship. Boeing has a tremendous presence in the White House. Donald Trump would take Kelly's calls any time. The people you do business with can also be your ambassadors. So go and find the people you do business with in the U.S. to say nice things about Korea. Trump listens to a lot of different sources, and the people you do business with can sometimes be some of your best advocates.
We obviously heard from the governor of Alaska today. We also heard from the National Assemblywoman. My hope is that we can get a big deal done for Alaska LNG here in Korea on a win-win basis. Maybe that's what we can hope for. So with that, I want to thank the panelists for your time today. But I also want to thank you, Meg. I know it's late in the evening for you in the East Coast. I know that you are doing really big things in America and in the globe. I hope to host you in person one day. So thank you so much, Meg. You were outstanding. You made a great contribution to our event today. Thank you,
James,
Meg.
thanks again for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Let's give him a big round of applause.
네, 고맙습니다. 이렇게 해서 첫 번째 세션
Thank you for your remarks. That
이렇게
concludes session 1.
주한 미국 상공회의소 회장 겸 대표 이사님과 그리고
Let's give another round of applause for Mr. James Kim, Chairman, CEO of Amcham Korea, Mr. Mig Mulvaney, former acting White House Chief of Staff, Mr. Moo-hwan Kim, Executive Vice President of Energy Solutions Business Division, SK Innovation, Mr. Hector Villarreal, President and Managing Director of GM Asia Pacific, and Mr. Jacob Edberg, CEO of the GR Company.
네, 굉장히 또 흥미로운 주제로 여러분들과 첫 번째 세션.
So this was a very interesting session.
현재 시각이 10시 55분을
It is now
가리키고 있습니다.
10:55.
다음 세션, 두 번째 또 세션도 역시나
Session 2
패널 토론으로
will
이어갈 예정입니다.
be in the format
그래서
of
저희
panel
5분 정도
discussion.
브레이크 타임을
We'll
갖도록
have 5 minutes
하겠습니다.
of break time,
10시
and
55분이고요.
since it's
5분 후인
10:55 now,
11시에
we'll see you again
세션을
at 11 o'clock
시작하겠습니다.
sharp.
11시에 바로 이 자리에서 뵙도록 할게요. 잠시 후에
Let's see you at 11.
고맙습니다.
Thank you.
네, 여러분 벌써 11시가 넘었습니다. 저희
So
두 번째
it's
세션
11:01
이제
now,
시작하겠습니다.
so we'll proceed
두
with
번째
session
세션도
2.
패널 토론으로 진행이 될 예정이니까요.
Session 2 will also be held in the format of panel discussions, so please be seated. Make your way into the grand ballroom
So, ladies
and
and
be
gentlemen,
seated.
let's move on the second session shortly. So please make your way to the venue and take your seats. 자, 그럼 이제 두 번째 세션 바로 진행을 하겠습니다. 이번 세션의
proceed
주제는요.
with session
미래
2.
성장을 위한 한국 기업의
Session 2 is
변혁입니다.
themed
자,
Korea's
앞으로도
business
우리가 어떻게 해야
transformation for
될지에
future
대해서
growth.
함께 또 고민을 해보는 시간 차례차례 또
It's
이어가
a
보도록
time where we
하겠습니다.
put our heads
지금 무대에
together to
계시는데요.
navigate the path
과장님
forward.
김정호 카이스트 교수님.
We have
네.
Professor Kim Jong-ho from
패널리스트로
KAIST
함께
as the
해주시겠습니까? 박수
moderator
부탁드리겠습니다.
and chair, and we have Chun
LG
Ki-jung,
AI 연구소 프로덕트
head
부문장님.
of AI Business Unit, LG
함께
AI
해주셨고요.
Research,
그리고
with us
또
here
함께
today.
해주실 우리 김태호,
We have
위켄
Mr. Kim
테크놀로지스의
Tae-ho,
공동
co-founder
창업자님.
of Wheaton Technologies.
네, 이어서 정창모,
We have Mr. Jung
컨설팅
Chang-mo,
상무님께서
Executive Director of
함께
Deloitte Consulting, with
해주시겠습니다.
us here today.
자, 그러면 이제 좌장을 맡아주실 우리 김정호 카이스트 교수님 이제 마이크를 넘기도록 하겠습니다.
And now I will give the mic over to Professor Kim. Hello everyone.
개최되고 있는데요.
We are at the Korea Times-Amcham forum. The theme is strategic proposals for Korea-U.S. partnership.
특히 저희 두 번째 세션은 한미 경제 협력의
In session 2,
방향.
I would like to talk about
미래
the
비즈니스 대전을 위한
Korea's
로드맵
business transformation
되겠습니다.
roadmap.
저희는 아까 조금 전에 말씀드린 것처럼 전기정 LG AI 연구소
We have with us Mr. Chun Ki-jung, head of AI business unit, Mr. Kim Tae-ho, co-founder of Wheaton Technologies, and Mr. Jung Chang-mo, executive director of Deloitte Consulting, and we'll proceed with the panel discussions.
저가 이 토론회를 진행하는 방식은 마치 우리 넷이서
I will chair as follows. It's like the four of us being old buddies. We're going to talk in front of a virtual fireplace, an imagined one.
저 자신은
I myself
AI 반도체인 이제 HBM 관련해서 한 20여 년
have been involved in HBMs for 20 years. SK Hynix and Samsung, Nvidia has been my former partners.
저희 프로덕이 AI 데이터 센터에 들어가는데
My products are installed in AI data center. OpenAI, Microsoft, Amazon are some of my clients.
제가 학교에는 있지만 하는
I am
분야가
at school, but the field I'm in involves the United States, the Asia region, and the whole ecosystem.
한미 협력이 또
In
어떤
that
미래를
regard,
갖고 있는지
the raucous
이야기하도록
cooperation's
하겠습니다.
future will be discussed at this
진행
session.
과정에서는 일단 먼저 연사님들이 자기 소개를
First of all, the panelists will give their introduction for about a minute, and following that, I will give out questions to which the panelists will answer about 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll have about 4 to 5 different themes. First of all, I would like to give a question to Mr. Chun Ki-jung. What are you doing at LG? Are you getting paid enough? Are stocks rising enough? Please elaborate.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I'm with the LG AI Research Product Unit. I'm a leader of that unit. My name is Chun Ki-jung, and as you know, this is we have XR1 LM model at LG, and we also have industry-specific AI models being developed at LG, and to increase utilization in work related to customer-facing work. We are trying to modify them to make it to friendly to customers, and we are also trying to transform ourselves. So within LG companies, we are trying to look ways to adopt AI more. So we are actually acting as a consultant to other LG companies to that activities. So how the AI is being applied in different industries, how that's driving, transforming various industries, what I would focus on. As far as I know,
AI 모델 중에서
among
모델이
the
있어야
AI model, I mean, you need models to
여러 가지
have
종합적인
business
기능을
and
가진 모델을
having
우리가 파운데이션
we
모델이라고 합니다.
call foundation
그중에
model that has
파운데이션 모델 중에
different
대표적인 게 LLM인데
features, and one of them is LLM. And according to the Stanford lab, among the foundation model that was became available in last year around the world, it was led by U.S. and then China, and it was only one from Korea, and that was EXA-1 that your unit developed. So I would like to learn a lot of secrets related to that today. But anyway, Dr. Bae Kyung-hoon, the center head of your center, has become the Minister of Technology Science. Yes, I saw his press interview on the news this morning too. And I said this is a fire chat conversation, so let's keep it casual. I also went to the AI data center opening ceremony, and that minister was sitting next to me on the bus. So I really had a very strategic location. So we were able to exchange name card, and I really wanted to get friendly with him that day. So my gut feeling was really okay. And I also have got to know the president of SK Broadband, who will do business with AWS actually. So your AI research center, if your center leader or the president becomes minister, then Dr. John, are you going to be the next president of this research center? Not really. Maybe you should put in good word. To whom? No, I'm just joking. But anyways, internally, there's a lot of preparations being made, and also on the press today, different things were talked about. But he's really somebody that is much nicer and more skilled than me, will become the top of my center. So an ex-neighbor person became also minister, and the neighbor stock price went up. So what about LG? Well, I don't know whether LG CNS stock price will go up, or LG Electronics, or what, because there are different LG companies. But it's always good to please our stockholders, whatever the companies LG is. For your reference, I also have LG refrigerator at home. And we also have Written Technical founder Kim Tae-ho here. So could you maybe introduce your company? And as a co-founder, what is your equity ownership of the company? I'm curious about that too. Well, good morning. I'm Kim Tae-ho from Written Technologies. And Written Technologies is a startup company. Me and my friends, or seniors of my school, from 2017 or before we knew each other. So before pandemic, we did a lot of volunteer works together. And with the pandemic, as a lot of things switched online, we decided to found a business together. So these friends are still with me. And this startup is only at a beginning stage. We are only 4 years old. But monthly active users is more than 50,000 only in Korea. So maybe 10% of Korean population is using our service. And last March, we were able to successfully secure Series B investment. So last year and this year, total Series B investment is more than 180 billion. So let's give him applause. That's a big money. Was it only in Korea, but also you got investment from the U.S., Japan, Korea, U.S., Singapore. Diverse investors gave us investment. And I think Tues or Navier Kakao went more than 1 million mark of users within 7 months. So I think we can also achieve that. Anyway, we are a fast-growing startup. Now AI is LLM based, and you can have also video replay other things. topics. So you probably going to talk more about that. But written technology, where is your strength at? For us, model-based application is what we developed, especially human to AI, living together. So you're focused on making AI as companion. So you're mostly creating agents, AI-based. Yes, that's correct.
Now we have Mr. Jung Chang-mo, Executive Director of Deloitte Consulting. I'm not an expert on your field. On what field do you provide consulting services? When you look at consulting firms like ours, we are conducting business a lot on the field of AI. We have head of the AI business unit or co-founder here with us. They create good technology, and companies have to use them at an affordable price, and we provide guide to do that. And companies have different capabilities. They can't use every technology right away. Sometimes they don't need to internalize the technology. In that case, we have engineers with us here at our firm, and on the platform, we develop codes, we write codes so that the firms can more easily use the AI systems. So you create solutions, give out consulting. Yeah, we do all that. We use open source to generate AI services. So we provide services on many fronts, but to define our services, we handle technology and firms, and in the middle, we relay the services in between one another. So you transcend boundaries. What about you, Mr. Jung? Do you have an engineering background or do you have other consulting backgrounds? Where did you start out from? I majored in data mining, optimization. So I majored in analytics, and after that I was in Samsung, LG, SK. I was a data scientist in these firms, and then I got to work at Deloitte. That's amazing. Optimization struck me. I'm an engineer, so there's a lot of optimization issues. There's reinforcement learning, AI. I design semiconductors. There are a lot of variables, so I received the help of AI. In the process, optimization is widely used. So with that, ice-breaking session has been concluded. We've got to talk about what each of the panelists do. FYI, I've never met them. We just exchanged business cards 30 minutes ago. So I would like to give out my first question to Mr. John. Personally, I am an expert in semiconductors. There was a boom in Korea. Samsung, SK, Hynix grew together. That all started with the advent of the personal computers in the 1980s. My partners were the Intel, Microsoft, and so on. The mobile era began in the 1990s. We had Qualcomm, and then YouTube. In the next 30 to 100 years, I think AI will pave the way. From semiconductors to software, everything will be led by AI. But what do you guys think? When we look at the global trend, how is it shifting? If AI is leading the way, then you all have a common denominator of AI. Is it a hype? What about AI? What do you think about AI? The fate or your careers hinge on AI, so how do you predict the future trend? I would like to hear your opinions. Let's start with Mr. John.
Yes, these days AI has become such a hot topic. Like end of 2022, with the introduction of ChatGPT, it has grown exponentially. And actually, generative AI, what does it do? I think the beginning was only 2 years, and quickly everybody caught up. Now it's all about agent and physical AI, and also from the company side, the AX or AI transformation. These 3 A's are now really being talked about. Now, co-founder Kim Tae of Written Technologies is also developing applications which are AI agent, so that many can use LLM technologies, and it's actually being used a lot in the writing area through his company also. So for companies, the information they have, the document that they have through AI agent, how easily they can be digested and also be part of their, embedded in the processes and used for the automation of their processes, what they're looking at. So if that is the agent perspective, that for the next A, about action is about how to automate decision making and make it more autonomous. So that action, quickly catching up what kind of decision making is needed, making autonomous so that it can move to the actual action from decision making and have natural flows in that. That's what they're focused on. And from the AI transformation perspective, the last A, what was done in the R&D and manufacturing line, parts were automated, like inspection, other things, but now multi-agents are used over all supply chain, or we also call as an AI agent. And through these technologies, you can upgrade the corporate value, and that is being achieved through AI transformation in various industries. So I think that is the latest trend that can be summarized into 3 A's that I just explained about. Now, you talked about 3 trends. So you talked about generative AI, right? First one. And if you go one step further, then it become AI agent and the physical AI action. So it combines with physical side, and then you have multimodal agent, right? Multimodal agent is something I will talk about a bit later. But how long do you think it will take or last? Well, 330 years or 100 years you talked about. But if you look at how many papers are being published, we find it very hard to catch up. And you can ask ChatGPT to give summary of the latest papers. Yes, maybe. But summary is done by agent. And through those summary, how it can be reflected into the decision-making process of our company is the area that many companies find as a homework. And using that, how can it be embedded into whole value chain so that our companies can become winner in the adoption of AI? So that for the next 50, 100 years, we can guarantee with our survival. And that for that step jump up, preparation seems to be made now. So what you're saying, it's not bubble, it's for real, right? Yes, it's not a bubble. So, it started with persons, but now being adopted by companies. And now AI is being also adopted by countries and sovereign governments. So they even talk about AI sovereignty. So I don't think it's bubble. It's as amazing as a third, industrial revolution, like the invention of steams, invention of alphabets and writing. So a lot of revolution changes, transformative changes will be coming, I think. So I also agree, the alphabet invention was important. That's how you deliver information and how information survive by, printing like Bibles. And then next big change came with internet, speed of information dissemination. And then third reform will become through AI. So I think you have a similar thinking as I do. So you talked about 3 A's. Next, I'd like to ask Mr. Kim Tae-ho, you are a businessman. So what's your future outlook? Be it human or businesses or countries, do you really think AI is near us, or is something that you are just doing as a, to get food on your table? Well, preparing for this panel discussion, I really, prepare a lot of different things, but Dr. John really talked about a lot of things that I want to talk about. So let me dive down and give a narrow focus. Dr. John talked about AI being real and not a bubble. Then in in the theaters, you have different stages or chapters. So like that. After meeting generative AI, in the first stage or first chapter has now finished. Now I think we are at the juncture of the beginning of chapter 2. So in the chapter 1 or stage 1, we focus really on infrastructure and models. We're trying to develop new models, and when new models came, what is the size of this new model? How did they learn things, and what are their features? And through that, we were able to see nice models like XR1 and others. Now, thinking of the next chapter, as the models and infrastructures are continuously upgrading and becoming more sophisticated, with this good foundation, what are we going to put on that foundation is chapter 2. And probably this is also related to making different products, as Dr. Chun is doing. But in chapter 2, different dimensions exist, and OpenAI and recruited Fujisimo, who used to be one of a leader of a different IT company and is now overseeing their AI. And in the Entropy, Netflix founder was recruited into Entropy, the company. So going beyond models, creating apps, or how to make it part of our daily lives, it seems to be what people are looking at. So at Stanford, Professor Andrew Young is also talking about this. He said that I'm also agreeing to what he said. So electricity or like internet, AI has already become commoditized. It has become very accessible. It has become kind of general purpose technology of our everyday life. And this type of technology is very important, but ultimately, on top of that, like electricity on top of power houses, what kind of appliances are we going to create that can use power is important. So we have to think about that. Creating electricity at the beginning took a lot of investment, and for internet data usage was really expensive, but now data is almost cheap and very free. So AI usage going forward would also become commoditized, very easily accessible, and 280 times of AI generation cost, it has gone down, so it's become more affordable. So again, we have good infrastructure. Now we have to think about what to stack up on that.
Co-founder Mr. Kim, if I were to summarize what he had to say, we've entered the second act of AI. There are many models that need to have application in place, and now the AIs are becoming commodified. Personally, I think as the model sizes became bigger, the cost of running GPUs would get too high. The electricity bill gets too high. And if everyone wanted to use that, everyone would have to pay up. And how much would it cost? I just wrote down how much it would cost. For utilities, I pay about 50 to 100,000, and for medical insurance, I pay about 300 to 500,000 won. For the younger generations, the housing bills, whether they borrow or whether they rent, they pay up to 10 million wons a month. So for telephone bills and medical bills, I think in between would be where the cost would lie. The models would be developed, but if the prices become too high, there could be discrepancies between social classes. So for states, companies that cannot handle such costs, there would be discrepancy. If we were to downsize the models and make them affordable, and if everyone could use them, and the electricity bills came down to an affordable level, I think the universal AI era would come faster than we think. So all application AIs are free when it comes to our services. So who pays for GPUs? Nobody pays for it. Strictly speaking, we pay for AI usage. The users would not pay for the use of AIs. How would that be? It could come from ad costs. So there are many business models, diverse business models. That goes for Coupang too. It was free at first. After they entered the market and gained a lot of consumer base, they had to retrieve their costs, so they up the price in the end. But I think it's good at the initial stage. We have Mr. Jung Chang-mo. You feel it tangibly on the field. Many companies want help. So where do we start? Many companies don't have infrastructure, don't have the personnel. So how do you provide solutions? Is AI hype or is it an actual wave? Can AI deliver value to companies? Other panelists have mentioned this. Like so, AI is no hype. I think the market for AI is maturing. Me included, many people are reluctant to move away from familiar fields. They can't seem to embrace it easily. That is why people want to find out some aspects that might seem like hype. So they're not hesitant to point out that AI is hype. They're like ostriches sticking their head in the sand. There are many people like that. Even in companies, they want to continue using the successful tracks that they used before. They have inertia, so to speak. There have been other technologies before, but there all has been. After the trend passes, AI is going to be useless as well. Some people speak like this. But let's think about hard evidence. Not only for scholars, but for everyday lives. Early 2016, everyone was shocked by the advent of AlphaGo. Everyone in Korea, everyone around the world were mesmerized by the advent of AlphaGo. When the first duel took place, when you look at the actual broadcast scene, in everyday parlance, people said that Lee Sedol hit a lottery. The winning prize at the time was about 1 billion won. And Lee Sedol hit a gold mine, people said, because people thought Lee Sedol was just going to steamroll AlphaGo. And people at my company said that too. But as the duel progressed, people said that AlphaGo made a mistake, and after the second, third duel was won by AlphaGo, people began to even apologize that they talked about things that they did not fully know about. You can see the apologization videos on YouTube too. AlphaGo players would no longer learn Go from Go academies. They would study Go by dueling with computers. So the change and the ripple effect came only first in the Go community. The same ripple effect and the same magnitude of wave is beginning in the industrial and corporate scene. But I think some of us might be commentating on this change, like the Go experts back in the past. When conducting an interview, the hardest part of AI and AlphaGo was that after a year later, after AlphaGo beat Lisador, it was meaningless for them to keep on dueling with humans. But in China, they were still developing algorithms that dueled people. They were able to make an AI algorithm the most capable one at dueling Go. And only Chinese players can use that algorithm. Korean Go players want to use that program to learn Go, but all the professional Go players feel very unfortunate and regrettable that they cannot use that Chinese system. You've mentioned, I think that that's the biased use of systems, discrepancies that you mentioned. Mentioning hype, I think, is one of the excuses to turn a blind eye to change, I think. Moving on with that, the AI is changing to a more AI-centric one. But you mentioned you've analogized some people to ostriches sticking their head in the sand. In my judgment, I think a state's or company's growth depends on how you use AI. Oh, you also mentioned AlphaGo. AlphaGo, I think, lost a game. I think the algorithm voluntarily lost to Lisador. That's how I view it. They say Lisador made a very miraculous move to beat AlphaGo. And AlphaGo could not explain why AlphaGo made that move, miraculous move. So we used a similar system to design such Go system, but when I ask why did you make the move, they answer for us. How we did that is, we made our systems learn Go through PDF, and they became an expert. Whenever I ask questions, they answer. They say that there will only be 3 jobs: develop AI, utilize AI, or engaged in delivery jobs. And 90% of the people will be riding motorcycles because it would be too expensive to put robots on motorcycles. That's how AI gives answers. I think Mr. Chung might think in a similar way. We'll move on to the next question. We know it's the AI era for sure. But in every domain, what is Deloitte doing to prepare for the coming AI age? You could develop models, create services, and so on. In order to do so, the reason I ask is because in order for all of these to be sustainable, the cost must be retrieved in the market. In short term, we could input trillions of wons of money, but we have to cultivate an ecosystem, and there are many applications that ecosystems can thrive on. We call it AIX, or we could have a subscription system. In the end, we have to retrieve the costs. So on your ends, what plans do you have? And how are you developing AI? How are you planning out your ROIs? First, I would like to ask this question to Mr. Chun.
Thank you for that nice question. Companies or businesses, as you said, the information that they have through AI technologies quickly and accurately, they want to learn those information. And I do believe that is step 1. So as I said before, to go beyond step 1, well, this area is replacing a lot of experts, be it in the legal area or patent or developing different physical items also being done by AI these days. Then how can you, as next step, combine all these to create values for the companies? It will be next step. And that can be is related to the workflows or processes of the companies. And companies these days is into combine these processes with AI. And if you think about this, like I talk about this a lot, is that the data that are open now but, is being learned by LLM and AIs. And by 28, all the open data, they say, will have already been learned by AI. This means that there will be a point where there is no data that AI needs to learn anymore. And so for companies, we might have information stacked up this much, so we can move the axis of the data, vertically or parallelly. Then the decision-making process or workflow of the companies will not be based on simple data. It would be information where the survival tactics and strategy of the companies are in there. So using AI, how quickly use that to decision-making process will be very important. So what I'm saying is that commoditized AI technology, please learn them quickly, and using that information, see how they can be combined to the information that your companies have, so that you can solve problems that your companies have. And using your imagination in there will be important, and who comes first to do that will be the winner of the future. So you are saying that you have the data experience in the workflow, combine that with the data to increase efficiency, accuracy of your businesses. So probably that's what you're talking about, right? Then now LG adopted XI1. Then how do you recognize that value? How do you monetize them? There's no sales numbers that you could quantify. Can there be a numbers where you can use to recognize AI values? Isn't that a challenge? Yes, it's a challenge. I believe consulting firms would also look into these also. But AI-based process innovation, once it's applied to real world, the output, how do you measure that? Actually, up to now, we only look at from the efficiency perspective. One of the LG affiliate, every year at one point, they have to assemble a product and deliver that. And the spec for such assembly is only 3 months before mass production start. Then for that 3 months, to comply with the specification, you have to be quick in doing tasks and have to increase the yield of the mass production so that you can meet the timeline for delivery. And meeting the delivery deadline is very important for manufacturing companies. And to do that, people need to intervene to check things, to increase yield. And that was all done by human. That means a lot of different testers need to be in there before you go into mass production. And that resource input is planned in your business plan. But if you automate it with AI, all the budget allocated for the area is no longer needed. And that translated into millions of values. Recently, naphtha dissolution used at LG Chem, and for such a dissolution, different agents are used, but that was now fully automated and using reinforced learning as used by AlphaGo. Missions are given to different agents, and agents are interact with each other to come up with most optimized plan. And now no longer human intervention is necessary. 100% optimized result calculated by AI is now being used at plants. So Dr. John In my wording, I sometimes say manufacturing AI. Korea is strong in manufacturing, automobile, TV, refrigerators. There are two ways to increase competitiveness in manufacturing. Using data to increase your yield, or with getting rid of inventory will be one way. Or you could use robots, which, of course, AI is used to increase accuracy. So I think Korea's manufacturing sector actually could leverage AI to increase competitiveness. This is, Korea Times-Amcham forum. So same goes probably with the U.S. manufacturing side. I have another question to LG. You have developed XI model, then like ChatGPT, if it's open to other people to take advantage of, I think is very good. So why aren't you disclosing it? Is it because it's for free? You can monetize them? Why are you only using it internally? Well, we are a research center, so we are dedicated, and we have mission to value up our LG business. So that's why we are focusing on. So Chat XL1 is being offered to LG companies, and about 50,000 of our 80,000 employees do use them. So, and it's helping increase our productivity. So I also hope that this type of service, if it can be available to Korean public, it will be good. Not only Koreans, but also to other nationalities. But GPU could be an issue. How many do you have at LG? I'll tell you separately. But I'm asking you a key question. I think Naver has the most number of GPUs in Korea, more than 20 to 30 million. So, I'm wondering how many you have at LG. You have to also differentiate learning assets and commercial assets. We are also testing out NPUs to reduce power usage and how we accelerate the speeds. So you are using different vendors from Korea for that purpose? Yes, that's also correct. Next up is to Mr. Kim Tae-ho. Now, how do you want to create business model for your company? In other words, as a startup, OpenAI or X, you have to compete against those companies, right? So how do you compete against them? Or how are you trying to create your own niche market for your own? You have to pay salaries for your employees also, right? So you have to make your company bigger and sustainable. So how are you preparing for that? Actually, to talk about this area, I have to also introduce our product lineup. And firstly, MAU 5 million users, written app, which is like acting as a companion. I think it's mostly widely used by our users, a most well-known app of our company. And in the age of AI, Naver Webtoon or like Kakao page, consuming stories with AI, that type of needs is also on the increase. Like character AI service also is in US, and we also have crack service as a written service. But the biggest difference with Webtoon is that the authors create their own universe and also draws up the cartoons, but users and only see them and view them. But once AI is engaged, then AI as a moderator to user, if there are two choices available, if you go choose left side, what are the results, and if you choose on the right side, what are the results? As the scenarios keep changing, then users themselves building their own AU and getting involved as the main proprietor in there. It's stories that we are trying to create using AI, and using the AI agent. Going beyond the test lab, we have actually serviced our services commercial to users, so we are also helping them switch to AI for our users. So Dr. John said they are measuring different with different indices, and at BCG, I hear that using the AI agent, coding or data, even 80% did not study this area because they can do that with AI, help of AI. So coding you can really done excellently with AI, but not only that, but see customer service and also back office functions, more than 30% of product increase was achieved with AI help, according to Bain & Company report. And for companies, what we need to be ready for is that for young generations, written is mostly used by 20s and 30s, and for this young generation, 1.4 times more accustomed to AI-driven changes. So 2/3 of our staff is already using generative AI in 1/3 of their work already. So companies, what we are faced with is that you are only working 4.5 days a week or trying to reduce working days. So AI can play a role to get us with that. So AI, we at Written, we have an app that can be used as a companion for daily lives. And story consumption app is also available, also targeting Southeast Asia market, and we are trying to also expand our footprint in other areas too.
All very interesting. I was intrigued by the story type AI. This is what came to mind. If you gave a story outline, then AIs can make an hour-long movie. If so, then the creator's role would be curbed. Looking at YouTube, we use them to study and gather information. But all YouTube videos could be in the future generated by AI, and I think written technology could play a pivotal role in doing so. FYI, in my lab, AIs are used in two ways. One, optimizing and predicting when designing semiconductors. We're trying that out with AI, and these codes are not written by students. These codes are written by AI. We're trying to do that. And the other is writing papers. I'm not very good at English, but they're all corrected through AI. Next, we have Mr. Chung from Deloitte Consulting. You engaged in diverse consulting services. What are some examples? Say manufacturing. How can you help the companies prepare for AI and AI-related services? I have experience in consulting, data mining, database marketing. From the early 2000s, I was engaged in data-related services. Speaking from experience, in the initial stage, you use data and then make a quick assignment. And based on the achievements, you expand the system. This is the virtuous cycle model. But some parts of finance and some areas have data amassed. But in other areas, in many of the works that we're engaged in, you've mentioned, Mr. John mentioned that the process is not set in stone. There are a lot of tacit information. And the silo effect is firmly in place. So there is this idea that exclusive knowledge is my competitive advantage. So making all those tacit knowledge into an organized one is very difficult. I don't think it would be 100% possible, but with the introduction of Gen AI and by coding, and if those become available, then I think the barrier to approaching technology would be lowered. But still, tacit knowledge is using that tacit knowledge to formulate explicit knowledge is very difficult. So recently I'm engaged in a project that has to do with a bank. To prevent financial misdemeanors, they have to look at many documents and review whether procedures were all conducted. People on the high level have to sign these procedures, check on them, and people above them have to sign that off too. They have these manuals, but when I actually looked at those manuals, they were very simple procedures. And looking at the results, they just wrote, looking at A, B, and C, it went well. That's what the report said. So the data could not be used for us. They just said nothing wrong in steps A, B, or C. So if we were to introduce AI systems into these procedures, actually accomplishing the initial goal of utilizing that AI would have to go through another process. And in many facilities, there are data from IoT. But when you look at the actual manufacturing production line, the personnel working there does not know which data influences the actual yield. They just use the production line as set. They don't try to change the minor details. I worked with a automotive manufacturing production line, and as the company aged, the workers aged too. So there was this urgent, pressing problem of having to automate the production line. But even the experienced personnel who engaged in melting materials to create the product had a hard time explaining exactly what was going on in the manufacturing process. They just had to wing it. They had to fly by the seat of their pants. They just had to feel the humidity, according to him. And that's how the process went about. So there was no actual set-in-stone process in place. So that's why we have to use the models or algorithms. But that's one part. There are data that has not been systematically set. We have to put our heads together to find out how we're going to turn those tacit knowledge into explicit knowledge. Thank you for your comments. So to summarize, there needs to be a model to realize AI. There also needs to be data, computing infrastructure, and we need talents to operate those systems. But when you look at the field, acquiring data is hard, and systemizing data is hard, and also there's no set procedure in place. So this sounds all difficult. There's also the silo effect, which hinders innovation. At our lab, we design semiconductors, but chip companies would not give us the designs. So we use computer simulations to create chip designs. But for actual chip companies, I think acquiring data would be the most pivotal thing to do. Now I will give the panelists each 1 minute, and I will ask. Today's topic has to do with the path of Korea-U.S. economic partnership. From infrastructure, technology, market, from broad points of views, we have diplomats here, ambassadors here. How will the Korea-U.S. partnership, in what ways will they benefit us? In the global market, how should we set the direction of growth? Well, I would like to start with Mr. Jung first.
저희가 이제 반도체도 어떻게 보면 글로벌 어떤 밸류체인들이 있고
There are value chains regarding semiconductors. They stay in solidarity and formulate a firm system. Like so, I think AI will develop in a similar direction. With NVIDIA at the pioneer, there are hardware platforms There are a lot of big tech companies. We also need sovereign AI that create foundation models. We also have the execution capabilities of Korean firms, and we have young ideas that will ultimately lead to services or applications that will benefit people. In this area, I think we have to strive for our strengths, and at the same time, cooperation models also need to be put in place. Right now, application services are thought in terms of B2C services, B2B services, but we have to be able to use them in B2C services. They need to be linked to the end users. In Deloitte, we call them AI factories, end-to-end service models. In Korea and the United States and in like-minded countries, I think this system could span across a wide region, thereby enabling us to leverage our strength and utilize the services. Whether it be models or services, computing infrastructure, and so on, the task is too big for one state to handle. The United States has their own strengths, and so do we. We have to create a win-win relationship so that economic, societal, and nationwide security can be enhanced. We have Mr. Kim. Do you have a headquarters written in the United States? No, we don't. Currently, we are concentrating on Korea and Japan. In order to conduct business with the United States, what do you think would help you?
Actually, we do have our offices in Korea, and we are active in these two countries. But as you know, foundation model actually started in the U.S. So we are also keeping our communication channel open with the Silicon Valley companies, as other panelists have said. And also in other sessions mentioned, there is strength by U.S. companies, so we need to be able to leverage that, and maybe through joint R&D, it could also help upgrade our own technology levels also. And listening to all this, I also find that Google and Naver, how they came to be, are very different. East Asians' preference of interface and what is being liked by other countries are different. And I do clear there's a lot of things Korean companies do. So separate from technologies, we need to find what we can do and use that as our leverage in cooperation. I think that will be helpful. So Google, Kakao, Naver, they all have key platforms, but not in Europe and also in Middle East. So maybe we hope a written technology can become, a good competitor against OpenAI, so that we can all grow together. But what about you, Dr. John? Well, let me keep it short as we are reaching end of our panel discussion. And for LG Group, we do have factories also in the U.S. But maybe because we have headquarters in LG, so recipes or recipe controls that we use for our processes in Korea, when it goes to other countries like U.S., Poland, it fails to work. Why is that? Do they get homesick? Well, it's mostly, I think, due to difference of environment. So sometimes it's not a perfect fit. So like foundation model in manufacturing, and that model being used to upgrade all quality of different factories could also be used. As in previous session, invest a lot in the U.S. SK also said it, and others mentioned that is also what President Trump likes. Buy a lot of Boeing airplanes, or have a give and take. So maybe foundation technologies Also, we can give it to U.S. Yes, increasing productivity in the U.S. There would be areas where we can partner together, and cloud or serving assets. We also have a lot of assets in the U.S. So if we are also partnering a lot with the U.S. companies in these areas too. Thank you very much.
This has been session 2 centering around AI. We talked about what companies should do to prepare technology and what ways there are in terms of Korea-U.S. partnership. Thank you for inviting us to the Korea Times and Amcham Forum. It was very pleasing to talk about AI in terms of Korea-U.S. partnership. I would like to thank all the participants and panelists for joining us here today. Thank you.
네, 고맙습니다. 이것으로
Thank
두
you.
번째 세션
This concludes our session 2.
토론 이렇게 또 우리 카이스트 김정호 교수님이
Please join me in giving another big round of applause to our session 2 participants. Professor Jung-ho Kim from KAIST, Mr. Ki Jung-jeon, Head of Product at LG AI Research, Mr. Tae-ho Kim, Co-founder of Wheaton Technologies, and Mr. Jang Mo-jung, Executive Director at Deloitte Consulting.
자, AI와 관련해서 우리 한국 기업
Regarding AI,
이야기 한번 들어봤고요.
we've gathered many opinions from Korean companies. How will Korean companies change in the future to adapt to the AI landscape? We put our heads together to contemplate on that issue.
마지막까지 또 포럼에 함께해 주신 여러분들을 위해서 저희가 잠시 또
For those of you who
준비한
stayed with us till the end, we have an event. It's a lucky draw.
오늘 여러분들을 위해서 준비한 시간인데요. 여기에 대한 그 결과 과연
We have the
어떤 분들이
results
당첨이
with me
됐을지
here
그
today.
여부를 바로 화면을 통해서 만나보도록
Please
하겠습니다.
direct your attention to the
화면 함께
screen.
봐주실까요? 네, 어떤 경품인지를 먼저 말씀을
I'll
드려야 될 것
tell you
같은데요.
what the prize is
스위스
first.
로만드 오케스트라 그리고
It's
양인모 우리 바이올리니스트죠.
from a
10월 6일
violinist.
멋진 또 공연 티켓을 여러분들께 드리겠습니다.
On July
바로 우리
6th, you have a
김상훈님,
chance to go to their
유상헌님,
concert.
정서형님,
If your number and name is shown on the screen, you may claim your prize at the registration desk. We have 김상훈, 유상헌, 정서영, 박정화, 유상훈, 황경태,
총 8분이네요.
장정수.
8분 잊지 마시고
We have
꼭
8
당첨되셨으니까
winners.
등록 데스크에 가셔서
Please don't forget to visit the registration desk and claim your concert
오늘 또
tickets.
차량으로 이동하신 분들 많이 계실 것 같은데요.
If you visited here
등록 데스크에서
but with your
진행을 하고
car,
있으니까요. 역시나
we
잊지 마시고
give
등록
you
데스크에서
parking
경품
tickets,
당첨되신 분들은 수령해
parking
주시고요.
validations at the
그리고
registration
차량으로
desk, so don't
이동하신
forget to
분들은
claim
주차
that too.
등록 꼭 하고 이동을 해주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이것으로 저희 코리아 타임스
This
암참
concludes
포럼의
all
모든
sessions of the Korea
순서가
Times
끝이
Amcham Forum.
났습니다. 다시 한번 이른 아침부터 귀한
Once again,
발걸음 해주신
I would
모든
like to
분들께
thank all the
진심으로
participants
감사드립니다.
here,
한국 최초의
despite your
영어
busy
일간지
schedules.
코리안 타임스는요.
Founded as
75년
Korea's
동안
first English
사랑받은
language
전 세계
daily,
독자들이
the
가장
Korea Times has been the
많이
nation's
읽는
most representative English
영어
newspaper for over
신문입니다.
75 years,
K-컬처의
loved by
영향력이
readers around the
높아지면서
world.
코리아 타임스의
With the growing
영향력도
influence of
계속해서
K-culture, the Korea
변하고
Times is
있고요.
expanding its global reach,
독자들도
gaining a
급증하고
rapidly
있습니다.
increasing readership
대표 영어
in
신문에서
all
전
over the
세계인들이
world.
신뢰할 수 있는 글로벌
We kindly
언론사로
ask
성장할
for
수
your
있도록
continued
여러분들
support and
많은
encouragement so that the
관심
Korea Times may grow beyond
앞으로 또 포럼
being
계속
Korea's
이어질
leading English
예정이니까요.
newspaper and
그때
continue
여러분들
to establish itself as a
찾아뵙도록
truly
하겠습니다.
trusted global media
끝까지 함께
outlet.
해주신
We're going to
여러분들께 다시
continue
한번
with our
진심으로
forum, and I would like to thank you once again for all of you, to all of you for staying with us until the very end. I'm announcer Kim Yeon-jin, and thank you for being with us here today. Have a safe trip home. Thank you.